order for our meeting on the 6th of September 2022.
Recording, sir. Are recording.
First of all, in the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given in the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of Council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Any apologies?
Not this evening, sir, but we do have Councillor Tammy Greenhouse on screen. I think you need to move.
I'll move. Can I have someone move that Councillor Greenhouse? Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Peterson. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 1.2, live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at this council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during this course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administration purposes. Item 1.3 is acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay respect to elders both past, present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Item 1.4, any declarations of interest?
Yes, I do.
Yep.
So just item 2.2, the small donations grants, grant number 3. I'd just like to declare a significant interest. I am one of the group leaders of the Compassionate Friends Group Orange.
Thank you.
I've got a few with the Planning and Development Committee. So item 2.2, 2.4, 2.5 and 2.6. Do you want the details now, Janessa, or when we get to it? Okay, so 2.2, the owners of this block are customers of my pharmacy. 0.4, my husband's company has done environmental work on this site. 2.5, this is non-pecuniary, but it's just around the corner from where I live and many of the commenters are my neighbours. And 2.6 is my husband's business has done environmental assessments on this site. So I'll just go to the pub during that bit. I'll be gone for a while.
Any other?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got to declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in item 2.5 on the Planning and Development Committee agenda, as it's, I live around the corner. I'll stay in and I can still vote.
Okay. Any others? I'll be declaring an interest in 3.1 in the infrastructure paper, as I am an employee of Orange High School. I'll call on Mr. Robert McKean of the Orange Presbyterian Church and ask him to lead us in the opening prayer. Thanks, Robert.
Let us pray. Lord God, you are the one who has made us. You rule over this world. You desire that prayers and intercession be made for those in authority so that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. Lord God, I pray for these councillors as they meet tonight. Please give them the wisdom in dealing with the matters that come before them. May they be enabled to make decisions that are based on truth and compassion. Lord, give each one the ability to discern the real issues and in humility to make decisions that will promote the good of all people in our community. Oh Lord, we pray for those in our community who are in need. We think of those who are suffering illness. We pray bring them relief and healing. For those in grief, may they know your comfort in their time of loss. For those who struggle in difficult relationships, bring them reconciliation and caring support. For those who suffer with depression, bring them renewed hope and purpose. Father, we pray for those sections of our community where there is tension, discrimination, violence, broken homes, antisocial behaviour and other troubles. O Lord, pour out your Spirit to bring healing and reconciliation, repentance and renewal, justice and compassion. Enable all people to live together in peace and harmony. Heavenly Father, we pray that you would help us to recognise our dependence upon you for every breath that we take. And may your name be honoured here in this city of Orange. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks very much, Robert. We've got some late items. I'll need a resolution that we deal with them during this meeting and in closed meeting.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
By Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Power. Can I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. Put the motion, all in favour? Sorry. Against? Carried. The council meeting now adjourns for the conduct of the open forum. We have 6 speakers tonight on an array of issues, and I'll just remind the speakers that you have 5 minutes. I'll go. First speaker is Peter Atkins from the Orange Police Station. Peter, if you could come to the lectern, please, and I'll just introduce the councillors. Going from my left here, it's Councillor Whitten. Councillor Greenhalgh is on Zoom. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Evans, Councillor Kinghorn, and Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councillors, Orange, CEO, Mr. Waddell and your staff. Thanks for the opportunity for talking to the council meeting this evening and members of the public. I guess there's 2 reasons, and thanks for the invite to discuss recent crime issues in Orange. Two purposes: to promote a community safety precinct meeting next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Mr. Morder for helping us organise that. Also to address some of the crime concerns that may be public at the moment. I guess the youth issues have been raised, local media, across sections of the community. There's been an increase in crime in August. Police announced the last few weekends significant crime, CBD. I've been an Orange police officer for 21 years, 15 years as an inspector, and you see ebbs and flows of crime. And mine's back to January. It was stolen motor vehicles, burning out cars. Peaked about 15 a month. We're back to 1 a month. That's off the agenda. Other reasons being offenders responsible for stealing and burning cars have been arrested, charged, custody. Current trend is for a small group of young persons in Orange. In August, we've made a large number of arrests. A large number of persons have been arrested, charged, served banning notices from CBD, certain shops in the CBD. Obviously, police deal with young offenders within the Young Offenders Act, so we're legislation how we deal. Principles of the Young Offenders Act is to deter persons from entering the criminal justice system. So legislation deal with young offenders, particularly for minor offences. That's including some antisocial behaviour in the CBD. Some is criminal, some's not criminal. Young person, particularly those under 14, have a presumption dealt with in the Young Offenders Act. Police announced that a large number of young persons now on bail. Justice system, bail not to do certain things, whether it's be at home on curfew, not to enter the CBD without a parent, might be on a banning notice not to enter a particular store because they've caused social behaviour or criminal offences in those stores. Recently, last weekend, we've got visibility policing operations in the CBD and on a number of young persons. I think it's about 30 young persons just in the CBD been moved on. How we can utilise to on persons for minor offences. Rest assured, I guess, that the police who are lead, a very dedicated group of police here at Orange, focus in the last few weeks has been persons, young children in the CBD, and talking to the centre managers and some of the retailers. Things have improved in the last, definitely this week, 2 weeks. I'm open to questions. I guess I encourage the councillors, the public, your staff to come to the safety meeting next Tuesday. There's an opportunity to work with police and council some of these youth crime issues.
Thanks. We'll just take a couple of questions here, Tone. Oh, sorry, Councillor Letter. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Inspector. Just regards, Orange is one of the last, well, it's the only city in New South Wales which forces a certain act. The government look like they're going to repeal. That act involves taking children at risk home of an evening. Can you comment on that?
Thanks for the prompt, Mr. Miller. So the Orange LGA is the last LGA in New South Wales to have the Parental Responsibility Act, which allows police to take children at risk of being a victim of crime or offender of crime under the age of 16 back home. So other LGAs and every other LGA in the state has let that lapse. We've been pushing, and thanks to Mr. Morder and his team, we've been definitely paying that legislation. There's opposition sections of the community about that legislation. I can't see why the position is taking a child who's a victim of the crime home at 3 a.m. LGAs have decided not to proceed. We've proceeded 30th of June, it expired. Despite the work of council and police, it's still under review. So hoping it gets reinstated. Because the bow to string to take these young persons home and deter.
And no other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor.
Inspector Atkins.
Hope to see everyone next Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Mr. Charles Everett. And Mr. Everett will be speaking on prostate cancer.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm the Secretary of the Orange Prostate Cancer Support Group, and we're affiliated with the Prostate Foundation of Australia. I'll talk to you about the group later. I had prostate cancer 20 years ago. I can still stand and talk to you about prostate cancer tonight. All the figures I use tonight are from the PCFA. Our copies available if you want further information. I'll talk about PSA blood testing, an ordinary blood test, prostate-specific antigen used to detect prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is a male problem only. Breast cancer is female and male. Men can have breast cancer. In the last 12 months, 9 men have died a day across Australia from the effects of prostate cancer. Why? Because they did not have a blood test early. Prostate cancer is the highest cause of deaths of all cancers. 1 in 5 men will be affected by prostate cancer. It is estimated that 24,000 Australian men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer this year, 20,000 women with breast cancer. You cannot self-diagnose prostate cancer. There are no symptoms till it is too late. That is why blood testing is critical early, and men being men, don't go to the doctor for a regular checkup. There is no screening program for prostate cancer, like breast cancer and bowel cancer. Why? The experts tell us it could lead to false treatment and cost. I believe the main reason is that unless it's compulsory, men won't go to the doctor to have it. Now, the Royal College of General Practitioners 20 years ago worked out that GPs could not refer a blood test to men to 50, or if there was a history of cancer in the family, 40, if you ask for it. Now, how many of our people know if their parent, father or that had prostate cancer? very rarely talked about. Then, if you were 70 and over and diagnosed with prostate cancer, no major surgery was to be offered, just a jab of a needle regularly. One of our members was diagnosed at 38, two at 42, with no history of prostate cancer in the family. Thankfully, in October, the college is going to get together and bring the rules up to today's world and medical practices. PSA blood tests are critical. The treatment of prostate cancer has advanced dramatically in the last few years. We even have a research group working on prostate cancer at the Orange Medical Centre. Side effects have been greatly reduced. If you are diagnosed with prostate cancer in Orange area, we have at least 5 specialists, the cancer centre at the hospital, and a prostate nurse. Most treatments can be had in Orange, no going to Sydney like the old days. We realise that when you are diagnosed, you are stunned. What do I do? That is why the group was formed, to give advice and talk. All of our group have had prostate cancer and treatment in most forms. We can help let newly diagnosed our experiences. We can advise only, but that the newly diagnosed, he is not alone. That's what we've got here. Help isn't help. Our group meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at the Cafe Connect, 107 Prince Street at 6 o'clock, part of the old hospital. We have pamphlets in the specialist rooms, chemists. We're having an information day at Bunnings on Saturday the 10th of September, and we're available to any time on our details are on the pamphlets. Ladies have a big play in having men have PSA blood tests. You can talk to the men all day long and they take no notice. Ladies understand that men don't listen. Please, ladies, nag them till they have one. Men, please have a blood test. Save your family heartache. All it takes is a prick of a needle. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Everett. Very important. You there?
Leave
those pamphlets, yep. Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Carter, Mr. Ian Carter, for 29 Hill Street.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask, Councillor Greenhouse is having trouble hearing on screen. Can the speakers please use the microphone quite as close to your mouth as possible? Thank you, Mr. Carter. Good evening.
Must have leaned down.
That's the ticket.
So Mr. Carter speaking about DA application of 61B Mulder Street. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
All right, Hill.
Thank you, councillors. And
in Mulder, but he lives
also
in
like to thank the members of the public for coming along, listening, and also pay my respect to my neighbour who I'm in discussion with over this issue. So this is an issue where 61 Mulder Street is wishing to put a development well and truly into the heritage precinct of Orange. This is a 2-storey dwelling. It was submitted as a DA in 2017, and council currently at the time rejected the proposal to build a 2nd-storey building right in amongst the heritage area of Orange, in between Whitehilda, Mulder, such that they rejected the proposal on 16 grounds. Now, I don't think the proposal has changed. It's just been resubmitted. And firstly, I really am just putting forward the argument that I'm objecting to it on heritage grounds and on bulk and scale. So just to reiterate why the council knocked back this project in The proposal does not satisfy the aims and objections of the local environmental plan. Numerous reasons. I'd just like to summarise a few. The overall heritage value and appeal of the locality is affected by this plan, of this proposal. The proposal will compromise long-term integrity of Orange's central heritage precinct. The proposal will have adverse effect on neighbourhood character. The proposal will seriously adverse effect on visual amenity and heritage considerations. 6, the proposal represents excessive bulk and scale. So this is a proposal to build a second-storey building, quite large. It exceeds the bulk and scale of that section of land. It is non-compliant in those building regulations. The proposal does not address scale visual interests. There's no visual relationship to the existing surrounding dwellings. The proposal does not provide a satisfactory solution to provide privacy issue conflicts. It has an overshadowing effect, and it impacts the broader visual quality of Orange and erodes from the quality of Orange's inner city built environment. There's a number of reasons why this was knocked back by the council. So this was a democratic process. This was voted and failed to get over the line in 2017. It's been resubmitted. The proposal will allow a permanent, irreversible effect on the quality of the building environment in Orange. This is what the council said. So basically, I'm just reiterating what you as councillors put forward with Mark Hodges in 2017. I can't see how the situation has changed. I'm wishing to put forward the negative for advancing this DA approval. I think there's horses for courses. This is the wrong horse for this course. This is a beautiful heritage area, and I think that if you wanted to build such a large bulk and scale project, there's other areas to do this so in Orange. I mean, basically, how beautiful is the heritage area of Orange? You walk around the streets, building will be visual from multiple houses like Mina, many houses along Hill Street. We all look back into our backyards and see this 2-storey building. We just think it's not suitable for this heritage area. We value the heritage area, and we just ask that if it's built once, it's irreversible. I ask that you, as councillors, consider it and consider preserving the heritage area of Orange. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to have a neighbourhood feud, and I'll pass on my respects to the owners of 61 Mulder Street, Catherine and Dudley Isles. I don't have any animosity against them. I just think this is the wrong building for the wrong site. And I love Orange. I've lived here for 24 years. How good is the heritage area? Please, can we conserve it? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Carter. Our next speaker is Sally Sutherland, talking on the same issue.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you for speaking tonight. Yeah, my name is Sally Sutherland and I'm from Source Architects and here to speak to you tonight on behalf of our clients, Catherine and Dudley Isles, owners of 61 Me tonight. Just really briefly on myself, I'm Source Architects. We're a family business. We've been here for 9 years. We are Orange locals. We have supported Orange through and through. We've done many developments through the Heritage Conservation Area and look after the heritage unequivocally. We have many, many developments that never get put forward to this council because they're all approved through delegation authority. So in this development, Catherine and Dudley are seeking to renew their extension and extend their retirement home so that it is appropriately sized for living spaces or contemporary living. It has a lift included, which gives them the ability to continue living as they age. The proposal does not increase the number of bedrooms. It does not include any additional parking. It does not propose any trees to be removed or take away any of the heritage development. The proposal extends the existing house, and renewing these houses in town is the best thing we can do environmentally. We're supporting living locally in town, We're renewing the existing structure. We're designing in a solar passive way so that we can provide northern light into someone's living space. Putting new insulation in there, we are renewing it environmentally. And as a result, we're renewing the heritage precinct so that more people can live comfortably. DA for 61B Mulder Street has been recommended for approval and has been recommended for approval without amendment. Just to clarify from one of the objectors that he was saying the council. It was the councillors that previously refused it, not Orange City Council and town planners. It was approved previously and recommended for approval without amendment, and the same thing happens this time. I'm sure you have read the Director of Development Services concluding comments. He supports the application in all aspects. We have 3 objections for the proposal, and I believe it is worthwhile to address those objectors' concerns. The objector claims that the proposal will deface and undermine the beauty and heritage value of the area. The development can't be seen from the street. The council heritage consultant has reviewed the application and has stated that there is no objections for the proposal. The objectors promote the line that because the proposal can be seen, that it is automatically not acceptable. There are, however, no council codes that state the proposal is required to be invisible. There is an existing tree canopies between properties and new canopy trees are proposed. There is, just to reiterate, there is no requirement for a development to be invisible. The objectors from 35 Hill Street claims that the proposal is taking away their view. There is a well-established Land and Environment Court planning case law that deals with view sharing, and this proposal is in compliance with that case law. Bulk and scale objection has stated that the proposal is not compliant regarding bulk and scale. Indeed, the proposal is not 100% numerically compliant. However, with regard to the DCP envelope control, it is compliant with the code's objectives. And it is compliant with the Land and Environment case law. The neighbours have stated about the overshadowing is an issue. However, overshadowing is very limited and generally falls on the land already overshadowed by vegetation. Council report concludes that no overshadowing is an issue. The objection that the house is two stories is unprecedented. He reiterates that he doesn't want to do it because it's irreversible. However, the reality is there are 4 two-storey houses in the immediate vicinity that share boundaries with this development. And in the past few years, the council has approved 2-level houses in the heritage conservation area within that zone, 78 Mulder Street, 81 Mulder Street and 82 Kite Street. This is not unprecedented. So the objectors make a case that their privacy will be impacted by the development. Council codes require unscreened upper level windows to be at least 9 metres away from the neighbouring properties.
Excuse me, Mrs. Sutherland, I'll just have to ask extension. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Miletto. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Continue.
So the council requires unscreened upper level windows to be at least 9 metres away from the property, the neighbouring properties, from their boundaries. So the outdoor space of 35 Hill Street is 44 metres away from their proposed, from the upper level windows, and the house itself is 55 metres away from the proposed windows. This is between 5 and 6 times the numerical compliance and is a greater distance than an Olympic pool. The outdoor space to 29 Hill Street is more than 50 metres from the proposed level windows, and the house itself is 70 metres away. This represents a setback of more than 7 times the numerical compliance and 70 metres at an enormous distance in an urban environment. Finally, the objector claims that this is an overdevelopment on a small block. Reality, however, is quite different. proposal is being built upon is 16.3% of the site area. This is the same as 29 Hill Street and significantly less than 35 Hill Street, which is built upon of 23% of the site area. This is not an overdevelopment. Aside from one numerical non-compliance with the council support, the proposal is compliant with the council codes and relevant land environment court case law. The sound and responsible proposal, and we respectfully request the councillors' support. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jenny Somerset on DA 387/2021 26 Listerfield Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors, for allowing me to speak tonight. Jenny Somerset. I live at 83 Park Road. Orange, and I hear about the DA, the proposed subdivision on 26 Listerfield Road. The back of my land does adjoin the bottom of their property. I'm not opposed against the development of the units that they want to develop, or the fact that they are gifting a large portion of that land to council. I'm opposed to the placement of the easement for sewage and water, because where they have proposed it, they want to carry on across the road and through my land. I've had negotiations with these developers since November last year, which have been not very nice. Each letter that they have sent me has ended in the fact that they would like to take me to Supreme Court if I do not comply with letting them put the easement through my place. I have a plan here, which is where the development easement could go through. Can I pass that around?
Yep.
That would then cross the land that they are giving to council, which would mean that they would not need to use my land for the easement. Is there any questions?
No questions, councillors?
Is that quite clear what I've...
Yep.
I could actually read the letter that I've sent
No, I think,
to council.
is everyone quite clear? Yep. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
My question is, do you have any spares in your letter?
The letter should be attached to the planning report, is that correct?
The original letter, I'm sorry, predicted text changed my address from Park Road to Park Street. That letter actually does have the correct address on it.
It's on the part of the planning report, Councillor Duffy.
It is.
Yeah, we've got it in there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our last speaker is Mr. Richard Thomas, and he is speaking on item 3.1, the infrastructure, traffic and parking at the intersection of Byng and Hamer Street. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Mr Mayor, councillors, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address you on these issues. The traffic and parking problems near the vicinity of Byng and Hamer Streets. These problems were submitted to the Traffic Committee back on the 8th of March this year. And despite the length of time that's been taken place, it's clear from the report submitted by the Traffic Committee up to the IPC that there's not a understanding of the full extent of the problems. And I'd just like to define the problems that I think have been dismissed and comment on solutions that I think can be adopted and the consideration of councillors tonight. And my comments are reinforced by a petition of residents that was submitted to with those papers, where there were 28 signatories covering these particular issues. The main problems relate to pedestrian safety. That's the first problem, where at the intersection of Hamer and Byng Street, Hamer Street being really a 5 metre wide laneway, and where there's a blind corner, and I've experienced and observed this because I reside on the corner on 12 Byng Street, and the risk is that that pathway is frequented by groups of students from Orange High School, and they come down the pathway, step out onto the road, invariably looking at their mobile phones. They're not concentrating. Traffic is coming up Hamer Street to the north, and we've seen a number of near misses, and I think even though the traffic committee has said, look, there's no crash data relating to that area, we believe it's an accident waiting to happen. And we believe that the solution to the problem is to make Hamer Street one way from Byng Street travelling south to Summer Street. Only a 5 metre laneway, really narrow. It's currently 2 ways. It's a simple solution which would avoid that risk of serious injury to pedestrians. So that was the first issue that I think was ignored by the Traffic Committee. The second issue relates to parking problems between Woodward Street and Sampson Street in Byng Street. During school days, that block is almost completely taken up by student parking between 8:30 and 3:30 on school days. And residents are frustrated. They can't get access to parking services or visitors within 100 metres of their homes. And what residents are proposing is that council institute a resident parking scheme so that non-residents are limited to 2 hours parking in that block. It's not sufficient for the Director of Technical Services to say it's most unusual for such a resident restriction to apply. Well, it applies in many council areas, in Woollahra, in North Sydney, numerous areas where residents don't have equitable access to parking. A similar scheme can be adopted here. Question has also arisen as to where do Orange High School students park? Well, I think there's an opportunity for them to park on Orange High School grounds, or certainly along Coronation Drive in a non-resident area. So we would ask that the motion be amended on 3.1 going before the IPC tonight to, first of all, provide for the one-way down Hamer Street. Secondly, provide for a resident parking scheme as outlined in the papers. So I ask that councillors consider those 2 solutions and amend the motion accordingly. Thanks for your consideration.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas. The council meeting will now resume. Item number 3 is confirmation of minutes of the previous council meeting. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Floyd. No speakers, all in favour? Against? Carried. This council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the policy committees. I call on Councillor Whitten to chair the Planning and Development Policy Committee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 6th of September 2022, with the time being at the moment about 14 minutes past 7. I move on to item 1.1, declarations of interests. I do understand what the interests are and which councillors have them. So if they could remind me at the time those items come up, we will make sure that we stop the meeting whilst they leave the chamber.
Can I just, actually, when I declared that, I did get one of the numbers wrong. So I'm fine for 2.6. It should have been 2.7. I can't do, I'm okay for 2.3 and 2.6. Sorry.
The director is preparing for a number of questions from an enthusiastic council tonight. Thank you, Mr Hodges. I'll move on to item 2, section 2, 2.1, items approved under delegated authority of council. I have a mover. It's been moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Evans. Any discussion on this item? Being no discussion, I'll firstly say that we've all seen an email this week from the director where we have some $20 million worth of approval works for this month with some 63 DAs. So whilst the economy is certainly struggling in a number of places, Orange seems to be very vibrant when it comes to building development, and so that's very good for Orange. So I'll put that motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 2.2 is development application DA 154, 61B Mulder Street. Councillor Kinghorn, we'll wait till you leave the chamber. Whilst Councillor Kinghorn is leaving the chamber, you will find the motion on page, or the recommendation, on page 11. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a motion that we defer this item for a council inspection.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder that we defer the motion subject to a site visit. Councillor Duffy, you wish to speak for your motion? Yeah, Councillor Duffy.
I'd just like to say the fact
your jacket, I think.
I'd just like to say the fact that we're talking about heritage of the area, ambience of the area, bulk and scale, and all those type of things. There, the last council refused this. It wasn't a new council like this one is here. It was an experienced council. We had a number of speakers at the previous time it was refused. I'm pretty sure that I think Councillor Munro, or the former Councillor Munro, had to declare an interest and leave the room. And I know there were some very good speakers that spoke at this chamber last time when people when the matter was refused. I'm not fussed about whether someone was here for 20 years or 30 years. I mean, you can go out to that board out there and see my family out there since 1864 on that board there. So I take great pride in the city, and I don't think we should run something through here without having a good look at it, because the previous council did have a good look at it and made the decision.
Councillor Hamley?
Councillor Miletto was first.
Sorry, Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I'm going to speak against the amendment to defer. The reasons being is that based on the material which has been provided, I think it gives councillors a clear understanding that it does meet all the objectives. What it does do is tell us that it is case compliant, and that was relayed by Sally Sullivan, who spoke on behalf of the applicant. It's quite clear that it's case compliant. It's also compliant with code of objectives. When we talk about, there are also two other two-storey houses in the immediate area, which was in fitting with the area. So it would appear to me that it would fit in the ambience of the area, although in a heritage area. And when we talk about the windows being off the boundary, the minimum is 9 metres. Here we have 2 areas where we've got 45 metres and 55 metres. I'm not quite sure what benefit it would be to do a site inspection based on the information which has been provided. What I also take into consideration is, whilst I appreciate the comments made by the objector in regards to this, the bulk of the building is only 16% of the site area. To me, that is an over-scaled bulk building which they're asking for. Quite often we see people, especially with interest rates increasing as they are at the moment, where they invest money in these type of developments. I think to defer this any longer than which needs to be would not be good business sense on behalf of anybody involved. So I will be speaking and voting against the recommendation to defer the matter for a site visit.
Thank you, Councillor Milletta. I might just remind councillors, if you are considering voting against the motion, then I will need an amendment with an instrument of something else, right? Because if we vote against this motion, then I don't have anything, okay? We don't have a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move an amendment that we approve this. The reason I'm doing this, last council meeting...
Did I get a second?
I'll second that.
This has been
Council, I voted to approve this, so I'm just staying to what I believe this development will do and all that information that came forward. So I'd like to move an amendment that we approve it.
All right, so councillors understand we have now an amendment for the printed recommendation. Councillor McDonald.
I'll speak to the amendment. Look, this is obviously something that several current councillors are aware of, as our mayor just mentioned. There was an opportunity provided to councillors by the director to do a site visit, which I thank him for. I took him up on that yesterday and had a look at the site. I've had a look at all of it. I agree with everything that the report says. I think there's been plenty of opportunity. Whether we're a new council or we're not a new council is irrelevant. I think this meets all the merits, and based on that, it should be approved.
Thank you. Do we have any further speakers, Councillor?
Thanks, Chair. I'm speaking in support of the original motion and against the amendment. And I thank the director and the staff for the report and all the detail it covers. And yes, we were offered the opportunity of a site visit. I didn't have time. I would want to read these papers first and then have that opportunity. And I do think we as councillors should take the time when we've got sensitive heritage protection considerations to satisfy ourselves before we make a decision. So we've done this in relation to another development application in this term where we took a quick site visit, we satisfied ourselves, we came back and sure it was unanimous that we approved it at that point. So I consider that it's reasonable that we take a bit of time with this, given that we do have concerned objectors as well as we have a report saying things. But I think understanding issues like visual bulk and overshadowing and those sorts of things, a site visit is much more helpful than small photographs that we get in a written report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Do I have any further speakers for or against the amendment? Have none? All righty. So I'm now going to put the amendment.
Not, Mr. Chairman.
This is the amendment we're dealing with now, Councillor Duffy, but please go ahead.
The motion. I have the motion, Mr. Chairman. I have the right to reply. First of all, I want to talk about the opportunity. Yes, we do have opportunity, but some councillors work and can't meet the requirement or the opportunity to go and meet with the director on the actual visit site. I think that's important to know to all of us. So it's in there. And you also talk about, someone mentioned about the profit and loss. Planning matters aren't decided by value for profit and loss. Their planning matters are decided by law.
By merit.
And I accept that fact there. But and Councillor Mallard touched on my third point, is about pictures. And all of you might remember the Hill Street Blues when we looked at pictures and those type of things there. And it gave us a good example of what was actually happening. This is the same situation here. I would tend to think that these days, with the technology we have now, when things come in front of council, we have a better picture of what's actually happening, where you get a visual effect, because that's why I think we need to go out there and have a look at it, see what is there. And as Councillor Mallard said, let's not rush this through. We paid the due respects to a DA going through in Oldham Street before, and the result was that it didn't get approved. And I'm not speaking against the motion or the notion of passing it or refusing it. What I'm saying, let's make a more informed decision and have a good look at what's actually happening.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So, the amendment is or an instrument of approval. Right? So all those in favour of the amendment to approve the DA, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. So,
Tammy.
Yeah, I've counted 10.
Tammy, sorry.
So we have, at the moment, we have a 5 for and a 5 against. I'll use my vote to...
I can't be.
That maths doesn't add up.
We're missing one councillor. How do we...
All right, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Sorry, these... Yeah.
5 and 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11.
Alrighty, we'll do it again. Ask a mathematician. Yeah. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Against the amendment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Tammy's on.
6. Yeah, I've got Tammy. Yeah, thank you. So we've got 6. Now the amendment becomes the amendment has been defeated. Motion is now to defer. All those in favour to defer this application? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. Against? Okay. So the motion is deferred. We'll move on to item 2.3 and we'll bring back in Councillor Upton. Yeah. Item 2.2, development application DA15. Oh, no, we've done that one. DA60 Whitton's Place. And I might add, got nothing to do with me.
I'm happy to move, Mr. Chairman. Move the motion.
Recommendation has been moved by Councillor Duffy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Councillor Duffy?
I'd just like to make the comment, and I think it's a great opportunity to make the comment that all the blocks, larger than building blocks that are on the edge of city, doing the right thing and becoming down small and becoming part of the city.
Councillor Duffy, any further speakers? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? The motion is unanimous. Item 2.4, development application 46 Shirley Road, and Councillor Kinghorn is leaving the chamber. Recommendations on page 115. I
move that.
Move it. It's been moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any discussion on this matter? Being no discussion, you sure, Councillor Duffy? You don't want to speak? Beautiful. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried unanimously. We bring in Councillor. No, we're not, are we? 2.5. Councillor coming back in or not? I can't remember.
It was fine for 2.5. It was
Good for
2.6. I think that she.
He's out on this one too. Thank you.
2.3.
So the recommendations on 2.25. So do I have a mover and?
I'm happy to move.
Second that, Mr. Chair.
We moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Hamling. Let Councillor Miletto catch up. It's a bit hard on the iPad. Some.
All that training, Councillor Miletto. I thought you'd be a master.
What is correct word?
All right. Do we have any speakers for or against the motion? All right, Councillor Mileta, you with us? Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Councillor Mallard, thank you.
Thanks. Look, I'm speaking for the motion, but I wanted to just comment on a couple of things in the report. Like, I recognise that under the current planning controls, this subdivision ticks all the boxes and deserves approval. But I do want to note, particularly the director's comments on page 224, I think are really important about the removal of trees and particularly native vegetation that we're losing in these subdivisions that are happening in this part of town, and the importance of future master planning. And I know the local housing strategy has started setting that in place, but we're going to have the review of the development control plan coming as well. I know the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee are very attentive to this area as something that we really need to deal with. I do appreciate the conditions that have been put in to deal with these trees and to actually relocate them to be used as habitat in some of the wetlands nearby. But I did also want to note and commend, sorry, I'm just finding, starting from page 235, the comments from Council's City Presentation Manager as well, being really important about, the fact that these sort of mature eucalypts and native vegetation like this is not something that's readily replaceable, and it's a massive issue that we continue to face. So, and I think what we need as we go into this process of reviewing our development controls is going to be to rethink the way we plan the development of the city. I mean, this development has virtually come to a situation, as you read the report, that it says, well, basically the master plan put the blocks here and the roads are already in place a bit. And so that means the natural environment gets wiped out because we can't accommodate it within what we've drawn up on our maps for the blocks and things. We need to be designing our city in a way that goes with the grain of the natural environment, that, finds ways to fit within what's already there, because at a time when we're facing biodiversity loss and climate change, we can't afford to be losing all of this mature native vegetation. Thanks.
Any further speakers?
I'm not speaking for the motion. I'll close the debate if you wish.
Wonderful.
I just wanted, I don't take issue with what Councillor Mallard's saying, but I mean, I've always said in this chamber here, we're here to build a city, not a wildlife park. And as far as I'm concerned, the trees are in the road. It's a large eucalyptus. You can drive around this town. You can go up with a park up there near Canobbas High School and you see a massive big gum tree laying on the ground. That's what's going to happen with these trees in the near future. You can go around town and see what they've fallen around. We knocked out heaps of trees over there in the netball courts. There was no squawking about those type of things there. But I refer to the comment of we. I mean, I don't have a problem with you having the idea, but don't include me in your we, because I'd say that's
I think the councillor was using the words from the staff, Councillor Duffy.
I don't believe in a lot of the things that you're saying, because I believe in a different attitude in a way that you're thinking.
Chair in this meeting. Thank you,
again, I
Councillor.
just say, it's let's develop the city.
Thank you. Our councillors will be reminded that I'm chairing the meeting and all councillors are entitled to have their say on a debate, and I will rule it out of order if I feel to do so. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Okay. All those in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. Against? The motion is carried. Item 2.6, Development Application 26 Listerfield Road. Wait for Councillor to return. Recommendations on 272.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just ask a point of clarification before we decide on this one?
Wait for Luke. Fire away, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to seek clarification on a couple of issues before councillors decide. I've heard Speaker Ms Somerset regarding her concerns regarding the adjoining properties.
I might just need a mover and a seconder so we can discuss. Right?
Mr. Chair, I'll move it for discussion.
Okay. And we've got a seconder in Councillor Evans. Carry on, please, Councillor Melito.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I note the seeking clarification from the Director regarding this DA. I understand that it's parkland. Perhaps in the future it could be future residential. I note that when we consider our future housing strategy, that both Park Road, Mr. Field Drive form part of that strategy. But as this application stands, and the concern by Ms Somerset is that with regards to the placement of the easement, I'm just curious to know what the rules and regulations are around easements, because there is an option for that easement to go through the developer's land. However, he wants it to go through the land owned by the objector, Jenny Somerset. So I'm just wondering what the rules and regulations are regarding that aspect and of the placement of the easement, because if the objector wants to develop her own land in future, whether that's going to be a problem for her. I would assume that the reason why the developer wants to go through her land is because it's the most cost-effective way of doing it. That may be okay for the developer, but it may not meet the requirements of the resident who lives at Park Road. So I'm curious to know, one, what are the rules and regulations around easements? Do they have to go through her property? And secondly, is there any appetite from the council to change the land zoning from parkland to future residential in that area?
And before the Director answers it, I just might, this is in your control, right? This DA approval, whatever form it takes, is in council's control. So if you want to put conditions on the approval, you can do so. But I'll let the Director answer your question, Councillor Melito.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Unpack this, I might even refer parts of it to the Director of Technical Services in relation to the technical side of easements, or servicing rather. But firstly, let's pull out the one on parkland. I was asked about housing first because that's probably a bit easier. That would be the subject of the need to rezone, like a planning proposal to rezone the land from parkland across to the residential zone. So that's part of the recommendation, is that it's a deferred commencement, which is something happens before the actual approval activates. The thing that's got to happen prior is the voluntary planning agreement gets advertised and signed. Then if the applicant was to progress with their planning proposal, where they wanted to get the extra land off the park, they would have to put in a planning proposal to council to rezone it. The voluntary planning agreement's drafted in this document. If that was to fail with this council, then those blocks of land remain as open space and come over to the full ownership of council. It's the choice to rezone later on is still at the hands of the council when the planning proposal comes back to you. So for the moment, it's parkland. There's a voluntary planning agreement proposed with this that would go on exhibition for 28 days. That would say if the applicant accepts that, signs it, they could progress with a planning proposal, but it would be up to the council at the time to determine whether or not they want to rezone that land. Okay, so there's still a choice later on for the zoning. In terms of servicing, so I draw council's attention to the response in the planning report of the same issues that Ms Somerset has raised. Page 299 is the staff comment of response as the Director of Engineering comes up to give a comment. Hold off for a second to make sure I've got all Councillor Meleto's comments. Whilst Mr Greenham, do you want to go first?
You can finish if you'd like, but or I can jump in, which would... Okay, thank you.
I'll fill the gaps.
So the actual subdivision application we've got here is immaterial of where the actual where the easement goes. So we have a condition currently on condition 11 that sewer mains shall be constructed from council's existing gravity sewer network in Park Road to serve the proposed lots prior to a construction certificate being issued. Engineering plans for this sewer system are to be submitted to and approved by Orange City Council. And we've given advice to others where to access the existing sewerage main, they have to cross through a neighbour's property. Sometimes the neighbour's property has the potential for future subdivision, sometimes they don't. But the neighbour is not obliged to agree to anything that they don't feel they need to. And I'm quite happy to provide specific advice to the neighbour concerned, and certainly we've been able to support others.
To clarify for the chamber, that we are not approving an easement process tonight.
Not approving an easement process tonight. What you're approving is a subdivision application, and part of that subdivision application requires certain, there's some controls, and those controls have to be run through before an issue of what we call a construction certificate. Tonight you are not approving an easement.
Could I just ask a quick question, Mr. Chair?
Certainly.
So the easement would be approved by council staff, not come back to councillors?
That's correct. But it can't go through without the
construction certificate?
Yeah, they can't start any work without a construction certificate. And we've also supported other people in the Shirley area, because the Shirley area, while it's a master planned development, there's a lot of people that live in that Shirley area as such, and if as developments leapfrog each other, then they have to construct mains to service their own lots.
And the easement path has to be approved, if it's using private land, has to be approved by the owner of that land.
That's correct.
Through you, Mr. Chair, they are a civil negotiation, yes, so between the private parties.
But I'm happy to give advice in that negotiation.
All right. You happy with all those answers?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Milletta. Councillor Duffy, I see you've got your hand up.
I might go back to the question here when I read this letter here, which I think you said what's there. If the owner of the land doesn't agree to the easement, it's all over Red Rover, isn't it? Why can't they use their own land?
It's not necessarily all over Red Rover. There's generally the other routes or other ways that it can be sewered. Sometimes it's actually of advantage to go through a neighbour's property, particularly where that neighbour has development potential in the future, because it saves that neighbour the cost of servicing those lots. And that's the sort of advice we've been given to others. But there may be a requirement that they go down through the road network.
That's not my question. My question is, if the owner doesn't say, hey, you're not going to get it through here, over, isn't it, for him? Otherwise he's got to go to court, hasn't he? He's got ways to a courthouse.
Yeah, he's not going to go through that process.
Yeah. And I think, Councillor Duffy, the Director has indicated that we're not dealing with this particular subject tonight, so it will come back.
I can't see why an easement can't go through the owner's property down to council land. That's my point. Why does he have to go through and disturb someone else's life?
Well, certainly it is our desire to have mains that service as many lots as possible. So what we don't want is 5 strings of mains going down to the trunk main that's further down in Park Road, and connecting up at that point to service 5 separate developers, for example. So if there's opportunity under the DCP for development of the adjoining land as well, then we'd like to explore that opportunity with that owner.
Another question, wouldn't that, through the interest director, that affect that easement, affect the development of the owner's property? Some way where they couldn't build it on it? I mean, if you've got a sewage going through a place, so either in, say, in Dalton Street, where it goes through the middle of blocks, put there years ago, you can't build over it. Is that, we're talking about the same thing here?
That's what Mr. Greenham, through you, Mr. Chair, that's what Mr. Greenham has been highlighting, saying this is where the owners get together and negotiate where locations of services go. So it's normal for us, like Mr. Greenham and myself met, and the CEO met with other developers a week or so ago, giving them advice of saying the best location for a line where they'd go in a position that would make it the cheapest for them when they go to develop in the future, if they need to. So there's a bit more to it. So it's not just they come in and just carve it through and don't have to give consideration to the future considerations of the lot they're looking at. So that's what Mr. Green was saying.
Thank you, directors. All right, we have a motion to approve the recommendation as it's printed on 272, which puts it up for 28-day submission. And so, any further speakers? If there's not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? We have one against. The motion is approved. Item 2.7, development application 12 and 13 Cameron Place. Councillor Kinghorn leaves. Recommendation is on 367.
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
Been moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on this item? Discussion? Righty, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee at around 13 minutes to 8. I'll call on Councillor Miletto to conduct the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee.
I'll keep the flag safe.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'd like to open the Economic Employment Policy Committee meeting, the time now being 7:45 p.m. Item number 1.1, declarations of interest. Does any councillor have any peculiar interest, significant non-peculiar interest, or less than significant non-peculiar interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Don't think there was any from previous discussions. Mr. CEO?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, item 2.2.
This is the
wrong committee, councillor.
Wrong committee, councillor.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Item 2.1, minutes of the Sister Cities Community Committee meeting held on the 26th of July 2022. There are recommendations on page 5. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved, thank you, by Councillor Duffy. Seconded by
Councillor Floyd.
Councillor Floyd, thank you, councillor. Is there any discussion regarding this item? Being none, I will put the motion. All for? Any against? Declare the motion carried. Councillors, that concludes the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting, with the time now being 7:47 p.m. and I call on Councillor Evans to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto. I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting the 6th of September with the time being 7:45. Back in time. Does any councillor wish to declare an interest in any of the items on the agenda this evening? I think Councillor Hamling has one in. Which item was it?
Point. Yeah, 3.1. Thank you.
Thanking you. I'll move on to item 2.1. Recommendation is on page 6. It relates to items on page 60, 16, 47, 86 and 88. Now, someone please move the recommendation. Councillor Floyd, thank you. Councillor Mallard, thank you. Any discussion on this item?
The matter arising.
Hello.
Thank you. Probably a combination of a traffic meeting, infrastructure and also planning. Mr. CEO, I've received a number of phone calls from business owners, investors, and regarding the industrial precinct out on Clergate Road, just where we're up to with that. Are you able to provide an update on where we're at and where we're going in timeframes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am. Both the sale yards and the Clergate Road Industrial Estate have been through an EOI process. Staff obtained numerous EOIs, and we're now at a stage where we're doing a slight redesign to the sale yard site with a view to getting that to council, I believe, in an October meeting to then proceed to sale. Seeing nods to my right. The Clergate Road subdivision is having somewhat more of a redesign due to pretty much what the market told us they want in terms of design and size of lots. So that will follow on shortly after, or probably a quarter after. So we'll see in 2023, we'll see the sale yard on sale in 2022, and we will see the Clergate Road on sale in 2023.
Are you able to indicate an approximate time in 2023?
I can tell you the sale yards will be in the next quarter. Clergate, I'm looking to my right. I don't want to commit us to anything, but it certainly will be before June next year. Okay, so we're talking first quarter. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to talk on item 3.2, the Orange Running Festival. It's good to see that coming back next year. That's a major event that happens in Orange. It attracts a lot of people from all over New South Wales. So it's fantastic that they're running this event, and we've decided to close the roads and help them to the with the attached conditions. Mr. Chair.
Councillor Hamling, thank you. I'd just like to comment also on item 3.1 with the rollout of the new bus zones. I think this is a very exciting initiative from the New South Wales government. As the city continues to grow and the CBD changes, it's great to have that additional service rolled out and connect the people to the centre of town. If there's no other comments, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 3.1 is on page 96. Councillor Hamling.
Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Whitten.
I would like to move a deferral of this item subject to councillors having a briefing to talk about this particular area of the city.
Bill moved by Councillor Whitten, second by Councillor Duffy. Any debate on this item?
Speak to it, Mr. Chair. The reason for the deferral is to review the area and get recommendations from the staff, and to provide some feedback, as Mr. Thomas has said, around that particular area. Certainly, knowing that area quite well, sort of grew up around that part of town. That section of the Hamer Street certainly would be better off as a one-way street, but I need to know the impacts of all of that. And certainly looking at how we better deal with residents being able to park in front of their own premises during busy times of school hours. So I think that there's a few things we need to discuss before we just whack up a few stop signs, no parking signs.
Councillor Whitten. Councillor Duffy.
I just want to agree with what said so far, but the issue is the park is starting to get a little bit of life in it as well, and we're going to have issues of parking that because the parkers are going to actually use that. And one of the things we have noticed a lot over a period of time is that the students are now getting their licences in year 11, and it's creating an issue all around most of our schools, and I think that's an issue at Orange High School as well. I do note the fact that a lot of the students are walking along Byng Street there and are on their mobile phones, not looking where they're going. They're just using their peripheral vision, which sometimes is not good, depending on who they're talking to. But I just think we need to do something. Listen, I'll be up front with you. I've never had faith in our traffic committee. Never had faith in it because, I mean, it's only made up of 4 people, and you have a lot of service industries not involved. Taxis, other companies, truckings and SES, bush fire brigades and all those type of things. They're not involved in making decisions of how we work around it. But as I said, happy to go back with it and have a good look at it. But as I said, I'm never a great fan of our traffic committee.
Councillor Duffy. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll pass on the comments to the Inspector and New South Wales Police and also the RMS regarding their lack of...
I've made them before, so I'll make them again.
Councillor Duffy. Councillor Miletto has the floor. Thank you.
Took your way out of a winning emotion. I had this one, Councillor Duffy. Now you probably won't use that word.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This matter has been raised on a number of occasions with the Traffic Committee, which I chair. It's a very productive committee, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm not against the deferment, but I will say that there has been a number of changes already made to parking in Hamish Street. There were some concerns around one-way traffic, and I see that Mr. Treakstone, who's splendidly dressed here tonight, is part of that committee, and I'd like to ask him for a comment on this issue, if he had some further clarity to Hamish Street, if that's allowable, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Theakstone, thank you.
Most certainly. So this issue was debated in the Traffic Committee. All of the concerns raised from the Thomases were furnished to the Traffic Committee. It was debated by all the members of the Traffic Committee. It came to Council and it was deferred. There was a little muddle up within our governance where a gentleman did want to speak to the item and he didn't get the opportunity. So Council deferred it for that gentleman to have a say. He's declined to have a say, however the Thomases have. So the item's presented there for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Theakstone. Any other comments on the item?
I might just close it. I appreciate the Director's comments. Thank you, Director. I think it's certainly of benefit for the councillors to really have a look at it as well, because at the end of the day, with like any committee of council, council ultimately makes the decision on either for a recommendation of a committee or against a recommendation of a committee. So I think it's valuable that we, before we put stop signs in Hamish Street, that we understand the real impact and what other things we may be able to do. And I have all faith in the Traffic Committee, Councillor Duffy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Whitten.
Now, the motion is...
There being no other comments, I'll put the motion for deferral. All in favour? It's beautiful. Thanking you, and I'll move on to item 3.2 on page 109, the General Works Report.
Better wait for the Mayor to come back. We don't need him, but we better wait for him to come back.
3.2, the General Works Report. Can I have someone move that the report be acknowledged, please?
Yeah, I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Whitten and Councillor Duffy to second. Discussion on current works.
Only,
Councillor
Mr.
Mallard.
Chairman, that the work on the footpaths are looking wonderful, great. You've acknowledgement to the staff, and we've had some very poor weather or great weather because I like the rain. Unfortunately, it's playing havoc with our roads, but the footpaths are looking good.
Councillor Mallard.
Chair, yeah, concur with Councillor Whitten. I've been watching the work on McLaughlin Street, which I pass by pretty regularly, and I'll take a walk up there soon. I also wanted to just comment, we had the report at the last meeting about our new 100% renewable electricity contract for most of our major sites and street lighting. Just looking at the final page of the report showing our last 12 months of electricity consumption, and we're looking at a total of more than 12,000 tonnes of CO2 emissions there. And my understanding, 93% of our power now is going to be driven by 100% renewables. Hopefully we're getting the rest of it to 100% renewable very soon. So that is a massive amount of greenhouse gas emissions that we have abated.
Councillor Mallard, any other comments? Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions. My first one is going to be to the director, and the next one is I want to take on from what Councillor Mallard said as well. When the reduction in electricity, I mean, I drive down. You go down Summer Street tonight, massive amount of. Take that on notice, Mr. Director. And the next one is I just want to know how many pothole gangs we've got running around. How many pothole gangs? Because I know in 2016 we were told we had 5 gangs running around. I'm going to make the statement because I travel around and fortunately pointed out to me that some of them aren't done properly. They finish up like, as or the next shower, whatever the case may be. But my concern is, and let me tell you, the roads aren't as bad as what they were in 2016. 2016, you had ambulances going through the potholes and weaving them, but this time around, there's a lot of road work breaking up, and I just want to gangs we got. As they were working on Saturday, which is. I just want to know what it is.
In there. You've got to give it to him. There's a couple of compliments.
Sunday as well.
Yeah. For him, Councillor Duffy. You got a resume for him?
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So, first things first, the amount of crews, when the water is just a little too wet, we normally do our rural road maintenance grading at this point in time. When it's this wet, we generally can't get onto those gravel roads. So we split that crew and we have up to 4 crews running around doing pothole maintenance. You'll also find we've got a couple of methods that we use. One is the hot mix, and that tends to provide a much longer lasting product. But the other one, which is quite efficient, and we can get around quite a few areas, and if the temperature's right, it works just as well. And that's the jet patcher. But we do need road temperatures to get up to 10 degrees before we can actually apply that. So that crew is starting later in the day. Make use of that, make sure that the road temperature is up to standard before we actually apply it. But yes, we are doing concerted effort to get around and maintain the running surface of all our streets. 4, up to 4.
Inclusive of the
jet patcher and yeah. Yes.
Just a point of clarification, when you say there are 4 crews, how many people are in each crew?
Oh, it varies. Some are doing traffic control, so there's a couple more in that crew, but generally at a minimum of 3 and up to 5.
With regards to people actually on a shovel or operating a bitumen sprayer, how many units are actually working, not supervising or holding a flag or something?
They're all working, whether they're driving the truck, whether they're on the ground with the shovel. We're making our best efforts to get around all our streets.
The question through you, Chair, to the Director. And thank you, Mr Greenham. I know it's probably difficult in these circumstances with the amount of rain we have and the type of soil we have in Orange. Anyone who's lived here all their life knows that it's a bit the not good for roads, the soil in Orange. But anyway, and I'm no road expert either, no engineer of roads. But when they do fill the potholes with the jet spray, is it possible to roll them? Because when they do fill it, sometimes when they've filled the pothole, not level with the existing pavement, if you know what I mean. So it becomes a bit, yeah.
It sometimes sits a little proud. They generally do try and...
It's a good word, proud, yeah.
Yeah, they generally do try and wheel roll most of those patches. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Ask the driver. Driver can drive.
Very good.
Thank you, Director Greenham.
Assistance. Thank you.
Just one further question, Mr. Green. I'm assuming that with the large volume of potholes, which, and I congratulate the staff for getting on top of them, I'm assuming they've prioritised the most important area. The reason I ask is because I've been approached by a couple of citizens regarding an area directly outside the front of the Mulder Street shops where there appears to be some major potholes developing, but not on the roadway, but where vehicles will park. Do you have a time frame when that area might be looked at? Bearing in mind that I understand that there are more pressing priorities at the moment.
Yeah, certainly. I'll take that on notice and get back to all councillors in the next 24 hours.
Thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment? Sorry, was someone else first? Yeah, you can go for it. Sorry.
My question is to the Director. Given the workload, would more resources from Council, particularly with the upcoming budget, be of use, or is it more complex than that in terms of enough their equipment and the like, and just more money wouldn't actually result in more things being fixed?
You can always use more resources, but there's budgetary constraints around everything that council does. And I certainly appreciate the councillor's support in the initial mini budget that was held the other day, which looked at some heavy patching money to be allocated, so that when that comes up, I'll certainly be happy to spend that money.
Thank you, Director.
Hey, more if you give it.
I'll just make comments in closing if there's no other comments. Just again on airport numbers, I just think it's really exciting with seeing them continually bouncing between about 6,000 and 8,000 a month, which is certainly well above pre-COVID levels, and certainly worth noting as well that Qantas has also announced another 3 white flights a week to Orange. It's just a sign of confidence in the region. There's no other comments. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. I'll close the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting at the time being 8:02. I'll pass on to Councillor Mallard for the Environmental Sustainability Committee.
Oh. Thank you, Councillor Evans. I will open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting on the 6th of September with the time being 8:03 p.m. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed? None. We'll go to item 2.1, minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee held on the 14th of July. There are recommendations on page 5. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Maybe to move that, Mr.
Move Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Peterson. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Item 2.2, minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee meeting held 8th of July 2022. There are recommendations on page 19. Do I have a mover and a seconder for these? Thanks, Councillor Floyd and Councillor McDonnell. Is there any discussion on this item? I just have a question potentially for the CEO or otherwise Director Hodges, relating to item 4.1 in the minutes was an agreement to amend the purpose statement in the charter of the committee, but we noted on our meeting last Friday that we didn't have the language of the amendment, and so it hasn't come up to this policy committee for adoption. Given that the resolution there is to progress the amendment, my question will we be able to bring that proposed amendment to the charter back potentially to next month's meeting?
Mr Chair, yes, certainly the intent is to bring it back to the next Environmental Sustainability Community Committee to tweak their charter, yes. To clarify what we're talking about, yep.
Thanks, Mr Hodges. Thanks. Yeah, and for the information of the councillors, the committee had a discussion and have rewritten the items for the purpose of the committee, which were, pretty... they focused on some specific operational areas. They didn't necessarily reflect what the committee's wanting to do in this term or even what it did in the past, in the previous term. So that'll be coming through next time, but the committee on that and agreed on it. If there's no other discussion, then I will put the motion. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee at 8:05 p.m. Call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you, councillors. I'll declare the Finance Policy Committee meeting open at 8:06 and ask for declaration of pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interests, and less than significant non-pecuniary interests. The Councillor Greenhill has noted she is one of the applicants for a donation. And we'll move on to item 2.1, Events Sponsorship Program, Applications for Funding, Round 2.
Just a point of clarification, Mr Chair. Just wondering whether we could hear these in seriatim rather than all together. There's three and they're all separate.
I'll move it.
All of them separately?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that way. Been moved, seconded by Councillor Powell. All those in favour say aye or raise your hand. Carried. Okay, we're going to go through them one at a time.
Happy to move number one.
I'll second it. I'm assuming, clarification. First is Councillor Miletto proposing that we agree to waiving because it says consider.
Yes.
Yep.
Motion is to
The
agree to
recommendation
waive.
one. Any further discussion?
Just like to speak to it, Mr Chair. And I may end up asking a question in the end, but if this was a local organisation, I'd probably be happy to waive the fee. But given it's a department of the state government, we still got to maintain and pay wages for this facility. The question probably is, if we decide not to waive the fee, is there any risk that we don't have a Careers Expo, bearing in mind that it's a pretty important event for the community?
We might ask Mr Chair, Acting Director Sharp, if she might be able to provide an answer.
Have we given it to them before as well?
Sorry.
The question, sir? Have we given it to them before?
Yeah.
Sorry. May I introduce Jen Sharp, our Acting Director of Corporate Services?
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. In answer to the question, and I think there was a little question in the side there of have we provided it before? I believe that we have provided it before in the past. This event's been running for a number of years. To that, I cannot answer the question of would it continue without this. We would have to go back and ask the organisers that about if they were able to continue without this. Obviously, there's no income that I'm aware of from this, as there's no charge for the students or the members of the public to attend. So I'm not sure where they would get the funding to pay for the hiring of the hall in another way.
Thank you.
Sorry. Question to you, Mr. Chairman. The recommendation says consider. Do we need to give a derivative? Do we need to?
So it's been clarified that the mover and the seconder have said they're going to waive it.
Okay, good. They're approving waiving it. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll speak for the motion. I think it's pretty important considering where we are at now with our labour market. We've heard from many local businesses that they're struggling for hire and struggling for people to work. So I think anything that gives them a bit of a hand that can showcase what we have on offer here and get the students coming in to see what's around, I think it's a good thing.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Can I just make a comment? Further on page 6, it says in-kind support valued at $1,400 per year for 3 years. So moving this motion, is that saying that we're happy to do that for the next 3 years?
Have a comment from the director?
Point 2. We're only dealing with point 1 at the moment, aren't
Yeah,
we?
we're only dealing with point 1 at the moment.
It is
Point 1 on
confusing.
page 5.
I agree with Councillor Greenhouse. It is.
Yeah, it is. It is on page 6 and it is item 1.
It's 2.1, yeah.
And that is correct. Would be for the 3 years.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Mileto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, move to support waiving the cost of hiring the hall. I think it's important at this point of time that that we give students some certainty in the future direction, and I think this is an opportunity not only to support our own students and give them some certainty or some opportunity of where they might like to take their career, but it also gives an opportunity from other people from outside Orange to come to Orange and be part of this expo. And that creates other opportunities economically, etc. So I think whether it's 1 year or 3, and I understand it's 3 years, I would support the whole 3 years because I think it's a positive step and it does show that Orange is prepared to accommodate such an expo. And like I said previously, to give our students, their parents, some peace of mind to know that there is opportunities out there to look at in their future employment endeavours.
Any further comment? Be aware that, sorry, Councillor Peters.
My brief comment, I'd like to speak in support of it. I would like to ask maybe a question on notice. This has come up at previous similar meetings to waive the higher fees of the function centre. I'd be curious if maybe a report could be just given how, what proportion of higher fees are waived. I'd be reassured to know it's just a negligible few that have a good community involvement and not quite a large majority. I appreciate you might need to come back to us with that.
Need to take that one on notice.
You happy with that, Councillor? Any further discussion? Remember, Councillor, we're voting on recommendation 1, which would tend to think that automatically flow into number 2. Okay, I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your right hand. Unanimous. We move to recommendation number 2. We have
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor...
Me.
Councillor Peters.
For Whitten. Councillor Peters can have it.
Any discussion on this one? Just before... No discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, raise your right arm.
So just a matter of rising, Mr. Chairman, I suppose what it does do is it gives the organisers of this expo some future knowledge that, because one of the hardest things for any of these types of events is bringing in exhibitors, right? So the exhibitors will make up people like Defence and the Police Force and the AMBOs, all of those types of organisations that are going to explain to students.
And ability as well. Okay, we move on to item number 3. Council consider the funding for 2022 Orange Wine Festival, $10,000, which will assist in media and promotion costs.
I'll move the recommendation,
I'll second
Mr. Chairman.
Been moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Hamming. Any discussion?
Of clarification again, are you moving and seconding that we approve it? Because again, it says consider.
Approve.
Any further discussion?
point of clarification, Mr. Chair. With regards to motion, I'm just curious to know what Orange 360 would play in this festival. Do they have any involvement in the promotion of it?
We have some board members in the room as well. Be able to answer that.
You have a go. I'm happy
No,
to have
you-
a go
you-
myself.
you take it, sir.
I'm just mulling it over. Actually, it's a very good question, Councillor Miletto.
Orva's a member.
Orva is a member.
They
asking
run their own-
council for
their own
$10,000 for a $16,000 package, shall we say. Orange 360 has been asked to run the wine festival, taking the money from Orva to do so this year, and I think the food festival as well. So
I'd like to move motion to defer this and
I
get
would
further
like to take it
information.
on notice at least, that question properly. I'm afraid it's a very good question.
We have an amendment which is deferred
defer,
from Councillor Miletto, been seconded by Councillor Evans. Do we have any speakers for the amendment?
We can just simply bring it back to the 20th, yeah.
I'd like to speak against the amendment, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Only for the simple fact, and I appreciate the council's putting up the amendment, but we probably already know the answer that, yes, Orange 360 will probably take part in it some way, but Orva is a separate body of their own, so they're not applying for the money for Orange 360. They're applying for the funding in their own right, which they've provided financials and marketing material, and so I'm not sure what it would matter if Orange 360 was involved as well. I'm sure they would be involved in the event, but
Any further speakers for or against, Councillor?
Yeah, just a comment. They're actually two separate bodies, but Orange 360 actually is the overarching side of it. The wine festival and the food festival are two separate bodies. They have their own budgetaries, two separate. But take it on notice and get clarity on it. But that's my comment.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to speak against the amendment and note that the wine festival is next month, like the night market is the 30th of September. They're applying for money to promote and market the event. So if we deferred it to the 20th, I think we'd potentially be killing off the use of the money. I know there is in some mentions of Orange 360 social media advertising and things in the report, but it'll be good if we can get some clarification back so we can understand it for the future. Thanks.
Any further speakers?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll just speak against the amendment. I'm happy to support this. I think we're going to benefit greatly from this. When you look at the festival that's been open, over 60 events by 30 local businesses, and you've only got to go down to the night markets in Robinson Park and see the plethora of people visiting Orange going through the night markets. So I'm happy to support this.
Any further speakers? I'm going to speak on behalf of the amendment. I see no harm in finding out what the actual details of the both bodies are, whether they are the same membership. I think we should understand those issues. And
there's in the report, they're not.
And whether they have the same members, and I think we should also be aware of the fact that it's a fair bit of money, and we're not a public but relevant institution. But I see, again, I go back to the fact that we should be aware of there is a perception out there that the both organisations are the same. That's same service. What come there? Any further speakers? Do you want the right to reply, Councillor Whitten?
I think it's been done to death, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Everyone understands how valuable the wine festival to Orange is.
Not for you, the chair.
I thought you, as the finance chairman, you would be all across this. I'm losing faith.
I'll put the recommendation of the amendment first. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your right arm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. We get any more? 4. Any further debate? 4. Those against?
Against.
Get more people.
7. 8. Councillor Greenhill, was it?
7-4, lost. No, 8-4. Arithmetic, never my strong
So I
suit.
declare the amendment defeated. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is unanimous. We move on now to item 2.2, and there's a recommendation on page 55, and there is 9 recommendations. And do we want to deal with these separately? Moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Peterson. We deal with these separately. All those in favour, raise your right arm. Unanimous. Okay, the first one is $1,000 to Bloomfield Hospital Auxiliary for personalised resources for mental health and drug and
I'll move
alcohol.
that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that one, Mr.
Moved by
Chairman.
Councillor Hamling and seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any discussion?
Can I just say a quick one? I went to a Bloomfield Hospital Auxiliary meeting at the start. They do some wonderful things with very little money. So, this is great. How come there's an echo? Great news for them to get this this donation, and they continue on their good work. Thank you.
Just my comment would be that it's fantastic. It's a voluntary organisation. It's one of the many voluntary organisations that help run this city. Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your right arm. Matter unanimous. Number 2, $1,200 to Challenge Community Service, 2 exercise machines and a veggie garden for clients with a disability.
Move, Mr. Chair.
Move, Councillor Hamling. Do we have a
Second, Mr. Chair.
second? Councillor Miletto. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your right arm. Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I think the next item, Councillor Greenhouse is going to use herself.
Yeah.
Should we just take it out?
You just got excused. Yep.
Okay. Just a few. The Greenhouse has left the screen.
Happy to
Move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved by Councillor Whitten and seconded by Councillor Hamling that $997 for Compassionate Friends of Orange Group to purchase and distribute the book Coping with Grief to support families grieving the loss of a child.
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chair. Just with regards to this one, I'd just like to thank the people involved in this group and a number of other similar groups who take the time to try and assist other people who are suffering grief and through a really difficult, challenging period. So I'm really happy to support this one because it is a issue which touches a lot of people and close relatives and that. So I congratulate and thank those people for the work that they do in the community.
Any further comments? No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your arm. Matters unanimous. We wait for Councillor Greenhill to come back on the screen. She's back. Just for your information, Councillor Greenhill, that item number 3 was passed unanimously. Item number 4, $1,500 to the Canobolas Pipe Band to assist in the purchase of uniforms and music equipment. Do we have a mover? It's moved by Councillor McDonald. Seconded by Councillor Waddell.
Lead piper.
Seconded. We have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, happy to.
Any discussion?
Important part of the city. Just saying that they add some very great value to this community of Orange, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. Matter is unanimous. Item number 5, $1,500 to Bletchington Softball Club to support their recruitment drive.
I'll move that one.
Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hate to be a party pooper here, but my concern with this one, and whilst I thoroughly support sport in Orange and I would declare an interest here, not in this matter, but I'm President of Orange Football Association, my concern with providing money to support a recruitment drive, in my opinion, may open up a precedent for all clubs to do the same. A lot of junior sports are in the same position where they'll have committees and things like that, and to discuss strategies and things like that. Whilst I support sport in general. My concern with this one, if approved, will open up a flood of similar type applications, and I don't believe that it's the responsibility of a ratepayer to fund a recruitment drive for sport. I think it's up to the committees involved in those sporting clubs to show the initiative. Most recruitment is done by way of social media, things like that, but I note reading the application that they wanted to print some flyers and things like that. I would think that a worthwhile sport like softball, which has a footprint out there at Jack Brabham, I would like to think that there would be sponsors out there or community organisations who would get on board and perhaps help promote this type of initiative. So I'm going to reluctantly speak against it because I'm concerned that it will create a precedent future funding for all or the majority of other sporting groups.
Any further speakers? Councillor Peterson.
I also would feel I have to reluctantly vote against it on the basis that we're talking about a third of all the money that we have left in this particular grant of this available. It's only September. This couldn't be extended to every sporting club in Orange if we wanted to, with only a $60,000 small grants budget. So unfortunately, we couldn't do it for all. We should.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I agree with the following two speakers. I'm sure there's probably more than one softball club in Orange, and I certainly would support if it was the association that was asking for funding overall to support all the clubs. But I agree it may create a precedent if we're just going to help one club with their recruiting drive.
Any further speakers?
Mr. Chair, just quickly, I had some concerns of this one as well. I think all the councils have hit the nail on the head. We'll open a Pandora's box. We'll have all clubs coming to us. And as Councillor Melillo said, I'm sure there'd be some sponsors out there that could fit this bill for them. So I think we need to be really careful about this one.
So I'm just going to back that up, number one, because I think you've got hockey, you've got cricket, you've got junior organisations, you've got tennis, you've got everything, rugby. I mean, they probably need help because they got beat in the weekend, didn't they? But some
of them were beaten.
But we got a lot of sporting organisations for recruitment. You often see them drilling out for players and whatever the case may be, and it's a competitive arena. Okay, so the recommendation is to refuse, and by Councillor Miletto. So who was the seconder? Councillor Mallard.
Councillor Mallard is the seconder.
I moved approving it.
Mr. Peterson.
I thought it was initially
for approval
as printed.
Yeah, and we're just going to vote against it.
We'll deal with the.
There's no amendment. We're just going to vote against it.
No, but I think it was initially approved, moved and seconded over here.
Yeah, that's what I'm
right.
saying. And so we'll deal with the amendment first.
There is no amendment.
The second
amendment. We just vote against it. You don't need an amendment.
You just did.
Oh, did you? Amendment to do what?
Vote against it.
I got my ears on.
Okay.
Amendment to do what? That's right.
It has to be against it.
Voting against it, no amendment.
Yeah.
Happy to vote against it.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favour, raise your right hand.
Of the thing as printed. To give them the money is the motion.
Those against. I declare the
money is
motion
therefore
lost.
not given.
And we move on now to item number 6, which is $2,000 to Road Safety Education Limited for training of local.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
Happy to second that.
Oh, sorry. Hammy can second that, sorry.
Move Councillor Hamming, second Councillor Greenhalgh. Road Safety Limited Training for High Schools. I have a question maybe they can answer. On this every year?
I should say in the table, which I've now just lost.
The event has been held in Orange for a number of years, but we have not sponsored.
And that's the one they hold at Racetrack.
High Park, correct.
Yep, okay. Yeah, okay. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Peterson.
I probably will reluctantly speak against this one, thinking that it's probably not really a council issue if we've got a limited amount of money. I We'd rather spend it on local clubs and the like, not this.
Any further speakers? No further
I'd just like to speak for the motion. I think this is a great initiative to keep our students safe. It could just be those matters that you brought up, Councillor Duffy, just about, making the new drivers aware of students that could potentially be walking across the road as pedestrians in their cars. I did have a call recently as well from the guys from the Rotary Club, and because of COVID, they've had trouble getting their simulators back into schools and stuff. So I think anything that we can do to, support the youth of our city, I think it's $2,000 well spent.
Any further speakers? No further speakers. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, raise your arm. Against?
No, I'm for.
All for.
Read the next
Declare it unanimous.
Sorry, sir.
I think.
Again, sorry, Councillor Peterson.
My apologies, Councillor Peterson. Item number 7, $3,400. Maximum in this category is $2,500 for the Central West Region Girl Guide to support the running costs, maintaining the guide hall as well as paying for essentials.
Can I just ask for a clarification, Chair? So this is actually saying $3,400 or the category maximum of $2,500. So you're given a choice here. Is that correct? Yep. So someone needs to move a motion.
Yeah, I can move it. That's fine.
Or which one?
For the category maximum of 2,500.
Thank you.
Okay, moved by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Look, I'm a big fan of the scouting movement. I'm a Queen Scout and was a leader for 5 years. But $2,500 for 20 Girl Guides does seem like an awful lot of money from a limited budget. I would rather maybe offer a smaller amount of money, make an amendment to offer $1,000. If that might be more proportional.
Second that.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? Who actually owns the dwelling?
Who owns the Girl Guide Hall?
Up at Litchington.
I believe I'm being spoken to from my left, saying that we council own.
Do we? Okay, we own it then. And thank you.
Being told.
Thank you.
So the money's going towards a council facility, basically.
Well, it's cost of maintaining the hall as well as paying for essential services. I suspect they'll pay the running costs. They'll pay the power bill.
My Chair. We were able to waive the rates, and as part of the changes to Local Government Act recently, that was no longer available, and that's what's then driven the application. So because they previously couldn't have those rates waived, then they now have that cost. Therefore, are requesting.
Just a point of clarification, rates can be now paid and waived under Section 356, is that correct?
Take it on notice from myself. Anyone know the answer, CFO? Which is the answer?
That's something to remember, I think, councillors.
Chairman.
We have a recommendation.
I'm just happy to
What's
speak.
the second one?
A couple of points. Just further to Councillor Peterson's earlier point that the budget for the year is $60,000. If all of these things got approved today, that would bring it down to $30,000 in 3 months. So it means we would have used half of it in 3 months. So we do have to be mindful of that. I just wanted to double check with what you were saying about the rates. Does that mean that if they get this money, they will be then using it to pay the rates? So it will come back. So it's essentially cancelling each other out, but it's coming from a different part of the budget.
We can't specify what they would use the money for, but they have listed as some of the costs that they have for the year includes rates. And that was part of their reasoning for the application.
How much are their rates?
What are the rates on the Billy?
Can I just, contradict you on page 59? Someone's just pointed out they will say they'll be using it for gas, electricity, mowing and leader support for volunteers.
I also
doesn't sound like maintenance of a hall, leader support for volunteers.
The rates was one of the items.
Yeah, okay.
As there are other items as well, correct?
I clarify, money has been paid in the last 2 financial years, and you sort of said the rates have changed. That law, was that recent for this year, or is that something years ago, so this is continuing on from there.
I believe that was just this year with the change to the rates.
Yeah. I'm happy to speak for the motion. I think this council needs to support as much as we can the young youth of this city in any activities they do, and I think $2,500 in doing such things for the young people of Orange in the Girl Guides is a great thing, and they're going to use it to pay for whatever they're going to use it for. But if it encourages the young people to join this organisation, then we should be supporting it.
Any further speak, Councillor Mallard?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, agree with what Councillor Whitten just said, and I just want to note in relation to the amounts that we're allocating, and the theme that came through in reading a lot of these is a whole lot of community groups are just attempting to recover after a couple of really hard years where they've lost people, that they haven't had young people able to engage new young people come into the activities. They haven't been able to do their normal fundraising activities either. So I think a bit of generosity as we're recovering from COVID still is important. Thanks.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Can I just make a comment? Just looking at the notes, I think it's important to note that previously funded by council, in 2021-22, we did donate 2,500. 2020-21, we did donate 1,500. Mowing, I would have thought, and I know volunteers, I'm a volunteer myself, I know how many hours we put in, but you would think that, $600 for mowing would be able to be absorbed. The thing for me, the point here that I think is paramount that, we do at least support with something is leader support for the volunteers, the memberships and the first aid. I know firsthand what it costs to put volunteers through first aid. And I think it is important that those leaders are qualified to look after the children when they do go out and do those things. So, to Councillor Kinghorn's point, maybe, we move an amendment to not approve the whole 2,500 and it might be 1,000 that we donate this year. I'm not sure. Thank you.
I'm going to ask for clarification from the CEO as regards to what we have. We have the motion for $2,500. And we have a foreshadowed motion of $1,000.
We have an amendment from Councillor Peterson with a seconder for $1,000 on my left.
Over and above?
Oh, $1,000 full stop, rather than the $2,500 on my right, which is not the $3,000 in the thing.
That's a clarification.
Yeah. So
I'm going to speak for the actual motion, and rightly so, simply because the other couple of weeks that we got to go, we got the information through of what organisations pay $1 a year. And some of those organisations receive millions and millions of dollars and nothing comes back out of them, whereas these young ladies and a lot of other organisations do a fantastic job of what they in their fields of various different events around the town and keeps them occupied. And probably a good thing for what we got coming up with the police public meeting. Any further speakers? Councillor?
Mr. Chair, I'll just speak for the amendment for $1,000 as well. Taking on board what Councillor Mallard's saying is that we've only got a certain amount of money left and a lot of these groups are just getting back on their feet, which is fair enough. So I think $1,000 is an appropriate amount because who knows, in 6 months' time, the Boy Guides or the Boy Scouts might come to us and say, hey, can we have $1,000 too? And we've got nothing left to give them. So I think it's important that, yes, we give them something, help them get back on their feet, but leave something in the back pocket for some other people in the same position. And also one you might take on notice, Mr. CEO, is it possible to ask the likes of Newcrest if they're going to bring back the fundraising Beyond the Curve? I was part of that program a year and a half ago, and I think it was very worthwhile for a lot of community groups around the district.
We'll ask. Thank you.
Any further speakers? I'm going to put the amendment first. The amendment, to be aware of the amendments for $1,000 only, and the motion is for $2,500. So I'm going to put the amendment first. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. 5. Those against? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, Declare the amendment defeated. I'll now the motion. All those in favour, raise your arm. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 11. Against? Councillor Peterson. The vote was 11-1. We now move on to item number 8, $2,500 for the Orange City 8-day games to supplement participant entry fees.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak against the motion for this one.
We have a move and a second, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, happy to move.
Move, Councillor Floyd.
I'll second it.
Seconded, Councillor Hamley. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I would like to speak against this one is because the 2,500 is to supplement participation entry fees. I think entry is a matter of choice, and if you take, if you want to participate in a race, you know what the cost is. So I don't see it's a responsibility of the ratepayers to subsidise somebody's entry into a sporting event. I think if you want to participate, you're required to pay the fee like anybody else. So, and I'm not quite sure how many numbers they will get and how much of an impact that would have on the entry fees. So I cannot support subsidising somebody to participate in the Orange and 8-day games. I mean, this again could open up a precedent where we're having sporting players asking to be sporting clubs asking to subsidise their fees for registrations for the year. So I think again, by allowing this or supporting this, potentially may open up a Pandora's box where sporting clubs and players will ask for the same type of gratitude from the Orange ratepayers, and I don't think that is a particularly responsible use of ratepayers' money. Thank you.
Any speakers for? Sorry, Councillor Peterson.
I need to say that I was fortunate enough to participate in the 8-day games when I could. Marvellous event. It would sell out in a couple of hours when they would do their sign up at Hotel Canobolas. I agree with comments by Councillor Mileto that I think it's a choice of people to go in and doesn't necessarily need council support to be viable. I think it's up to its 43rd, 44th year.
Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to support Councillor Mileto there as well. I think that there certainly are a lot more things like the Girl Scouts, for example, Girl Guides, Boy Scouts, all this sort of stuff. There's a lot more important, well, I wouldn't say important, but there's certainly a lot more ways we could spend this money more beneficially to help other groups out. So I'd support Councillor Mileto with this 100%.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Greenhill first.
Yeah, I'd just like to support Councillor Mileto on this one as well. I'm definitely all for sport and recreation in our community. The question I would pose would, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that, 90% of the participants would be from Orange. So we're not bringing any tourists into our community. So unfortunately, I can't support this grant either.
We have a comment from the Director.
Only that there is no indication in the application where the entrants are from, so it would only be an assumption if I were to answer.
Councillor Hamley.
I'm going to speak for the 2,500. This is I concur what other councillors are saying, but this is a organisation that's been running for 45 years straight. I do notice they did 6 years ago offered a category for disability with the opportunity to join them. I think we could ask the money could be spent better than providing entry fees for participants, maybe promotion or helping them run events or something, or waiving fee. I don't know, but I do agree with the sentiments of Councillor Mileto, but I do support this event 100% because I think it's been going for a long time. It brings people together for sport that they'd never play, and it does bring a lot of business around to the businesses because they do support the businesses after the event for a week.
Chairman, yeah, look,
Councillor Whitten.
I'm happy to speak in favour of supporting the 8-day games. I believe it was an initiative of Orange City Council and Sport and Rec and Carl Sharp, so some 45 years ago. And for our sponsorship, we are able to use our logo in their media and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, a question through you to the director or the CEO, if we don't sponsor them, is it still called the Orange 8-Day Games? Because it was a council initiative some 45 years ago.
Yeah, can I just have a point of clarification then? My understanding, this has got nothing to do with whether the event goes ahead or not. Purely the $2,500 is to subsidise people to enter into the race. So there's no question that it's not going to go ahead. I'm totally support of the event going ahead. But I would assume that if the event itself has a number of sponsors, what we're voting on here is whether we're going to agree to subsidise an entry or an entrant to participate in the event. Nothing else. If you want to spend the money on, if the application had been for promotional expenses or administration, I would have been happy to support that. But that's not what this says. This says that it's about...
You're asking for a clarification for the debate.
Yes.
That matches my understanding of the application.
Councillors, I'm going to speak for the motion, but I'm going to move an amendment, and my amendment is to defer this because, the reason why I'm going to defer it is because it's in the information there. As the other councillors, I'll wait to see if I got a seconder.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. What I'm going to defer it is because it refers to the 8-day games. As I said, it's an initiative that happened 45 years ago. They support the business houses after the events on a regular basis, day in, day out. But if you read I just think it's been poorly put forward to us as by a secretary or whoever it was, maybe even a treasurer to put it forward. But when you talk about the costs of what it is for 10-pin bowling, the cost of what it is for various sports that they play, they don't know those things there. So it's to offset those issues there, and that's, I think, is where the misunderstanding is. And that's why I'm going to ask for a deferral, and maybe CAR staff can have a discussion with the 8-day games committee and go forward from there. Comment from the director.
I believe that there was a request for further information from the organisers of the 8-day games, and what we have presented to you is what was provided to us.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think, look, I've been to plenty of the awards, the winners and losers and cases, and I know a lot of them do come from out of town. They come from Molon, they come from Millthorpe and various different places, and they come into Orange to compete on various different sports. But I do know the costs involved and those type of things, and I think Jason...
I put the motion be put.
Yeah, okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Shortly. Okay, but motion can be put to, who's the mover of the motion, what the right of reply? Was the motion, move of the motion?
Councillor Floyd, wasn't he?
No.
I can't remember.
Spoke to it.
Councillor Floyd had moved it.
Floyd Hamling on the original motion.
I'm going to put the amendment first, which the amendment is to defer and seek more information. All those in favour of the amendment, raise your arm.
1, 2, 3, 4.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, 8.
9. Those against? 1, 2. Can't add up. 1, 2. I'm looking for, my figures must be wrong.
The amendment is successful.
The amendment is successful. It now becomes the motion. All those in favour, raise your arm. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So what is it?
Matters.
Matters. Can I get some clarification on exactly what we're asking the organisation, please?
The organisation is to go back to the 8-day games and probably discuss with them the issue that it's not really an entrance fee when you look at the they're talking about subsidising. It's the actual costs of putting the events on, not an actual it's not an entrance fee. They're talking down here of the clay target tops, the 10-pin bowling costs. They're talking about other costs down here, go-kart costs and all those things, and fuel and stuff like that. That's what they're saying. This is what we've got to pay. And I think it's been poorly put forward to council. I'm not blaming council staff in any way. I never do that, Mr. CEO.
No.
Way of getting for more information, because I think the event is too important to us to move away from.
They could be supporting an underprivileged person, but they haven't said that.
More information.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so that's what it is. We have it. We're all those. All those against.
We've done it, mate.
You've done that bit.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay.
Mate, we cooked it.
Okay, we now move on to. I'm going to go back now.
No.
I've got to get a drink. I'm dying of thirst.
$3,000 for the Community Education Foundation Orange and District branch to support 2 or 3 Orange LGA students for lower income families to access further education in 2023. Do we have a mover?
And again,
Councillor
Mr.
Floyd?
Chair, I think there's a
Do you have a
choice.
second? Councillor McDonald?
Mr. Chair, there's a choice here again, I think. In the recommendation, there's a choice, Mr. Chair, I think.
Maximum $2,500 or they've asked for $3,000.
Yep.
So in the motion, your motion reads for $2,500, Councillor Floyd. Second, happy with that? Any discussion? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Peterson.
A similar theme that there's probably more good ideas out there than money available. I would reluctantly vote against it for that sort of money for 2 or 3 people, given that at this rate we'll probably run out of money for this grant by about next year.
Point of clarification. Can I ask what further education would be providing what they're seeking, which is not already being provided by the educational system?
Mr. Chair, I can answer this because, in fact, my tenant works for this organisation, whether you want me to declare an interest or not. This organisation works from benefactors giving money. Your money would go to students who usually come from a background that wouldn't, say, normally go to university, and your money would go to them. Say, if they went to university in Sydney, you'd be paying for books, rents, that support network that they wouldn't normally have. And it's fully funded by donations. So it's not about tuition, it's about support around the student. You can declare an interest if you want.
So who chooses the students?
The students, once they've nominated, then there's a board. It's pretty. They go around all the regional towns of, I think it's Australia or New South Wales, and they find these potential students, and then they're interviewed by a board. It's a very professionally run organisation. There's fundraising arms. There's serious money comes into it from some very rich people. But to them, it seems a constant struggle to just raise funds. That's how they raise things. They raise their money.
Excuse me, Mr. CEO. So just a point of clarification. If we were to approve the 2,500, it would definitely go towards Orange students.
And that's correct. It's very localised, and they have boards for each area. So,
any idea how many students we've had go through this process from our region?
I don't, but they're in an office in Hill Street, opposite the television studio there somewhere. Are you talking a handful of kids from Orange?
Yeah.
And region?
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be great to have this organisation come in and brief councillors. I think there's a lot of things happening in this city that
Councillor Mallard.
Cross.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and definitely agree with Councillor Whitten's suggestion. Just want to note on page 137 there are examples of what they've spent the money for. So they've bought a toolkit for a student who was doing a Cert 3 at TAFE, and they've also paid for a laptop for someone who's gone to study at the Uni of Newcastle. So there's a couple of examples there. I wanted to comment on a bit of a theme that's come through and Councillor Peterson's comments again that, we're approving money out of this fund and draining it down, and other people might come and lodge applications as well. I mean, these are the applicants who've taken the initiative to put together an application and to request money. I think if they've got merit, then we should approve them. If we end up running short, then we then need to think about, do we need to continue providing more community support and potentially adjust the budget? As I said, in a COVID recovery period in particular, where the Country Education Foundation's probably had some limitations on its regular fundraising activity as well. We're providing a bit of support. Thanks.
Any further speakers? I'm going to speak in support of the motion. Number one, just on Councillor Mallard's point there, is that we do have a number of organisations, individuals come to council seeking $200 or $300, $400, $500 to go to other events such as Weatherby Sport. I think a couple of weeks ago we approved $4,000 to organisations separately to go to various different sports on to represent the areas and all that stuff. I see no difference to this. I think from what I can gather from the CEO, there is a rigorous effort, an extremely good effort into identify students who do need the actual support. And let me tell you, if you're involved with students, I'm pretty sure some people involved with teachers do understand the fact that some kids do need help that have got talent. And that's the biggest reason why I support it.
Point of clarification, please, Mr. Chair. And look, I support the recommendation to assist these people. I'm just wondering, a question through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO. At the moment, the government is giving out a lot of funding to help community groups, things like that. I'm just wondering, is there any opportunity for council to apply for any of their grant funding to assist our efforts overall to help a lot of these community groups? Because this is coming from ratepayers' money. The state government or the coalition and federal as well are giving assistance, in a number of different areas. I'm just wondering, is council able to be an applicant, source some of this funding to assist the community overall, so when we get these applications that we can consider them in their entirety on their merit? Because as a couple of councillors have indicated, whilst we like assist where possible, we're at a stage now where we only have a budget of $60,000 and we're trying to work out what are the priorities. And they are, the majority are worthy applicants. But there is only so much money in the pot. Is there money available through the state government, through grants, supporting country communities, things like that, sporting organisations, whilst rather than all the sporting organisations putting in their separate little application for it, is that able to be done by council overall to assist some of these groups which don't have the resources to lodge the applications, or in some cases, or the knowledge to be able to do it? Is there something that council as a whole can do?
And can I, just as a comment, can I just make sure if we can either add that on the resolution or we can take it on notice as to how we can source out some funds?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, there's a couple of things there. We had on Friday, we had the announcement of the youth grants. The Mayor was there. That was $40 million. We'll tap that, arguably.
We'd be happy with 10 of that, Mr.
Yeah. We'll go for a maximum because the Minister came here to announce it. So there are things like that, of course, that we would then effectively use for the youth of town. Completely lost my train of thought now. The other type of grant we could use is things like the Stronger Country Fund, Mr. Maunder, which you'll recall you voted on some projects, 1.3 million for us to decide, 600,000 extra for community groups. So there is currently that open, and I know sporting groups tend to get very proactive, putting their hand up for that 600. How does that work, Mr. Moore? Do they have to compete for that? Do they have to compete for that? But what probably doesn't happen is groups like this Country Education Foundation, maybe they don't know about those. So maybe we have more of a role of advertising what our grants officer does, the grants she knows, maybe do more connections with the less sporting groups.
Without losing the line of thought of Councillor Miletto, your suggestion would be to add something to the mover and second, happy to add something to the motion. Awesome.
I might take it separately and do something.
Let the company come back. Happy with that, Councillor Miletto?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on the motion? I'm going to put the last motion. All those in favour, raise your arm. Unanimous. Now we move on now to...
Are you against? Councillor Peterson, you were against, weren't you?
Sorry, Councillor Peterson. Now to move on to 2.3.
The recommendation be noted.
Moved by Councillor Whitten. Page 145. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? My only comment is I find it funny how the New South Wales government can make a comment on federal assistance grants. Just so federal government. Anyway. Any further policy? Any further comment? I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye or raise your arm. Unanimous. And that brings to close the Finance Policy Committee at 8:59, and I'll call on Councillor McDonald to do the Services Policy Committee.
And just happening with the Sport and Rec Policy Committee.
Doing it last.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee meeting on the 6th of September with the time being 9 o'clock on the dot. Item 1.1, does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration? Nope. Alrighty, item 2.1, minutes of the Cultural Heritage Community Committee held on the 16th of May. Recommendations on page 5. And
I'll
I'm
move
after
the
a mover.
recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? Nope. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Anyone against? Councillor Floyd, I'm assuming that was a raised hand. Yeah, good. All right, motion's carried. Item 2.2, minutes of the NAIDOC Week Community Committee held on the 7th of July and on the 4th of August. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I'll second it.
Councillor Mallard. Any discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment in relation to work done by Christian Hunter. The applications that she had put in that received so much financial support. 2022 NAIDOC community events that are coming up. And yeah, so I just want to just make that note that, appreciate her amazing work supporting the Indigenous community and the NAIDOC committee too on a whole. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. If I can echo that, Kristen, for councillors who don't know, is Community Development Officer for Council. I just want to add as well that being a new member to the NAIDOC Week Community Committee this year, how excellent it is to watch the work of that committee. Like the council staff are a huge support, but also the number of community members and reps from organisations who are doing the work, putting together an amazing program for the week that's coming up. I'm really impressed and excited about it. Thanks.
Oh, right. Okay, you're just fiddling. Okay, excellent. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Anyone against? Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Motion is carried. All right, item 2.3. Minutes of the Orange Health Liaison Committee held on the 26th of July. Recommendation is on page 109. After a movement, a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. Any discussion? Nope. Alrighty, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Duffy, are you for or against? Thank you. Anyone against? Alrighty, motion's carried. 2.4, minutes of the Cultural Heritage Community Committee held on the 15th of August. Recommendation is page 129 and a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Floyd.
I'll second that recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Any discussion?
Yep. Alrighty, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. That's unanimous. Item 2.5, minutes of the Clifton Grove Community Committee held on the 18th of August. Recommendation is page 179. Mover and a seconder, please. Was that you'll move it?
Yeah, no, sorry, just amendment on the spelling. Garnabulla. Sorry for the...
Okay, sorry, hang on a second.
Yeah.
On page 179, is it?
Bulla, 1L.
No, back on the previous item, 1.
Yeah, sorry. I just noted the spelling. I just don't want to get...
Sorry, where are we going? Oh, 2 point... Okay, so on page 129.
129.
129. Just a correction on the...
Okay, so...
just for notice.
Right, all right, can we just amend that?
Hyphen and 1L for Bulla.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, item 2.5. I'm after a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Any discussion? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand, please. Thank you, it's unanimous. Alrighty, item 2.6, minutes of the Lucknow Community Committee held on the 23rd of August. Recommendation is page 203. Move in a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? Nope. Alrighty. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Excellent, unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Services Policy Committee meeting, time being 9:06. And I'll call on Councillor Hamling.
Councillors, I'll be chairing the Sport and Recreation Committee as Councillor Greenhouse asked to do that as she's on Zoom. Okay, I'll open the Sport and Community Committee meeting at 9:06. There's no declarations of interest. I'll move on to item 2.1, which is Orange Waratah Sporting Grounds operational support.
Happy to move it.
Moved by Councillor Duffy. I have a seconder. Councillor Mallard, seconded. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Item 2.2, which is the Orange Regional Sporting Precinct Project update on page 11.
I'm happy to move it.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Seconded by Councillor...
I'll second it.
Power.
Oh, yep, sorry.
Sorry. Any speakers?
Just a question, a point of clarification, I suppose. Just wondering where we're at with the maintenance estimations for the precinct once it's completed.
My apologies, Councillor. I meant to include that in the report, so I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Duffy?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have concerns about the actual cost of the project, and I know myself and other people have just said, hey, where do we get, what happens if it goes more than the $10 million? Where do we, the excess of what it is, what happens if it goes further than that? Because we don't have the actual real discussions of actually what we actually want out there, the same way as we have the information for the Planetarium Conservatorium. We have a quantitative survey report on that, and it's pretty much spot on what we actually want. But I don't think we have that as regards to here, of what we're actually going to put in the grandstand, what size grandstand, or the finer detail of what it is. Because if it comes out another $15 million, we're going to fork out another $5 on top of that. I mean, I know we go away to things like that, and they talk about shovel-ready projects and all those type of things, and having those type of things there, it means you have to have the designs ready to go. You have to have the quantity of surveyor support in detail to say this is what money you actually want. I want to know where we're going to go and get the money. It's more than $10 million because it's only a report back in early 2022, and it doesn't have the finer details in those points.
Would you like to answer? Is that a question or?
Not sure what the question is, Councillor. Is that if it's more than 35 million what we do? Is that the question? Sorry.
That's part of the question, but the main question is details involved in the quantity surveyor's report. What we actually want there with the discussions that goes through the various sporting organisations, there, as we did with the Planetarium Conservatorium, which we know exactly what we want there.
So to answer that question, Councillor, you'll note in the report that we're just about to appoint detail architects to conduct that detailed design. Part of that process will be exactly what you have mentioned. To date, the concept designs that have been developed based on feedback from the state and national sporting groups as to what is required for those facilities. They were developed and included in some concept designs that enable the DA to be progressed and approved. And so now we're at that stage of going to the next step, as you rightly say, and that will then give us more detailed costings, which we will have done by the end of the year. As to additional costings, as to additional funding, rather, again in the report you'll see that we're working closely with the Department of Regional Development New South Wales. We're working with the federal government. We're looking at ways with which we can contain construction costs, and we'll bring those details back to council as they become apparent.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question as well. I know it's noted for September 2022 to clean up the mulch and the wood chip and whatnot, but is there any intention to then sell that mulch and wood chip onto a business, and then it'll only be a small amount, but we can then attribute that to capital to continue building? Is there any indication if we're doing that or not?
So the plan with that, through you, Mr Chair, the plan with that, Councillor, has been that we will retain some of that mulch on site for use on site. So that's a portion of the mulch. The barrels, the tree barrels, and together with the other mulch is being an arrangement has come with a company in Sydney to recycle that, turn that into MDF type products to be used in construction for, say, office equipment. So that's always been the plan. It saves us paying for removal costs for that excess on site. So that's the offset. So that they're the two plans with the
coming out on top.
And so that will happen. It needs to happen within the next 4 weeks so that we can commence our civil works.
There being no other questions.
Sorry, just
Councillor
one
Mallard.
from me. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just noting, I guess on page 13 it does say that we'll look to achieve savings in design and delivery while not compromising on the function of the complex. I'm just wondering, I guess, about concerns maybe that, the focus here is on the construction of the stadiums and things, but there's also the parkland element to things, and I'm worried that is there a possibility that we're going to look at saving money or saying we're out of money to basically do the tree plantings and to create the green space that is envisioned to be part of the project, and that was part of the argument for replacing the trees that were cleared out there.
So a key component of the approval from Heritage was that we conduct those works. We have no choice but to conduct those works. So those designs have been under the project, so we're progressing that. We're in the middle of the process now of pre-ordering those trees and that planting. There is some scope, of course, in how advanced those trees are, what sort of stock, etc., and how you actually deliver that. But we have to deliver that plan that was approved by Heritage New South Wales as part of the DA process.
Thanks.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Unanimous. I'll close the Sport and Recreation Community Committee at 9:13, and there being no other policy committee matters, the council meeting will now resume. Notices of motion.
May I? So I don't want to disturb the meeting later. I'm afraid, Mr. Mayor, I'll probably need to leave, and I'll continue on Zoom, if that's okay.
Now? Okay, we'll wait for Councillor Peterson to be put onto Zoom when he continues on. so I'll just continue.
Do we need a motion for him to go onto Zoom?
He's indicated that he's going to continue with the meeting, so he's just
gone.
He's never long. No.
Thanks. We'll move on to item 4.1, which is notice of motion public meeting, crime in Orange. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm happy to. Sorry.
I want to
Mr. Mayor,
modify
you're
this considerably.
I'll second it to keep going.
No, I want to modify the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I want to modify the motion because after this resolution came in, the police called a meeting, but that's irrespective of what it is. I think council should facilitate the meeting, but I think we should also be proactive.
So what are you adding?
This is what I'm saying right now.
Oh, right. Can you just
be proactive in contacting the schools and advising them when the meeting is on, which means very straight away. And I do believe that I think council should be able to put out a little pamphlet, very small cost, and walk Summer Street either side and business houses either way to let business houses know the meeting is on as well. I think it's very important that we do. We facilitate it. Other organisations we facilitate as well, which are state government issues, especially domestic violence, especially these other crime and those type of things there, and health. I think this is one that's been in the public media, in the public arena.
So before you go on, your notice of motion.
Is what I when I finished at doing Summer Street and the schools.
Basically, to promote the community meeting.
So
CEO's got a handle of what I'm saying.
I think the motion reads, Councillor Wittens, I think that council promote the police community meeting of 13th September 2022 via various means.
Yeah, and encourage, make contact with the schools and do a letter drop for Summer Street and business houses either side.
Point of clarification, if I can. I agree with promoting it through schools and through the media. What I don't agree with is requiring council staff walk up the main street handing out material which could be disseminated by the council website or other social media or advertising. I think it's council resources we better used in other areas and leave it up to our communications people to address this issue and support.
Address that issue.
So far the motion says by various means, so I've left it open.
I just want to address that issue there.
Not my motion,
if you go and talk to some of those people, especially in the top block of Summer Street, they are absolutely scared of what's actually happening. Go and talk to where with sports centre and those type of things. They lock the doors because they got to go up the back of the room because they don't know what's happening. They talk to people who go underground, shopping at Coles and Woolies and underground and those places there. Women are scared of what's could happen because I've seen these gangs around the town.
Councillor Duffy, I think we might get the motion going first. You wanted to add to your motion various means.
And that's what it was, the various means.
So we will take that on board.
Yes.
See how we go. So I'll second that. Now we can discuss it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support. I'm not quite sure what I support here. What I support here is putting the police, promoting the Orange Community Safety Precinct Committee meeting on the 13th of September, which is going to be held here at the Art Gallery. I don't think it's up to council laws to tell police how to do their business. Police have got a number of strategies, and Inspector Atkins discussed those tonight, what they've been doing in the past couple of weeks to address concerns raised by Councillor Duffy. Police do their intelligence. They have intelligence officers and other resources available to them. I think that it would be more beneficial to the police or the community if we allow police to hold their meeting and we see what comes out of that rather than try and take the lead as a council, I should say, because I'm interested to know there will be people from the public and those people who Councillor Duffy has spoken about who have some concerns about certain things which are happening in the community. They will have the opportunity to come to that meeting on the 13th and raise those concerns and give police a better understanding where they may need to do things a little bit different or address their issues. So whilst I can see sentiment in what Councillor Duffy is trying to do here, and he is correct, his motion was probably a little bit preemptive of what was going to happen after that, but I do agree with what he says with regards to council playing a role in this with regards to promoting the event. But at the end of the day, I think it's police are organising that Orange Community Safety Precinct Committee meeting. It's up to them to dictate about what should happen there and what resources, etc., need with the input of the community and business owners. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy. Hang on, councillors.
A clarification. Where in that resolution does it tell? Doesn't. We are helping the police do their job.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right down my alley, this one here, so I'll take this one. In relation to antisocial behaviour aspects of it, my experience is quite vast when it comes to this sort of stuff. I've worked with the council and previous mayors in relation to 2005, 2006, burning vehicles around Emerald Crescent as a public servant. The aspect of dealing with social behaviours is about community capacity building. Community capacity building is building the strength base of those communities to deal with their problems. We can't police aspects of behaviour. It just doesn't happen. I spoke to the shop owners 2 weeks ago, and they just said they just run amok. The police will come in, they will just blah, blah, down the thing with their scooters, etc. I immediately started to share with them the aspects of this is not a policy problem, this is not a ministerial problem, it's a parenting problem. And as what Mr. Mileto mentioned in relation to the aspects of Orange having the duty of care with the police to remove or take or protect those children. This is the aspects of it. So when it comes to this aspect of it, there are services in town that are funded to do this. I've been on the phone. I still have contact in federal and state managers and directors, and they will be meeting with us at that meeting on Tuesday from the federal arm. They have funded 3 bodies in this town. They have already said we will utilise those funds to actually do the aspects of and support the policing and the community capacity within inside this issue that we've got. I don't believe that I do believe that Orange City Council has a role. There's no question about it. But do we have the pointy end? It can't happen. Can we support the police? Absolutely. Can we support those other services that are funded and have staff available to do the job? Yes, we can. This is the aspects of it.
You're not preaching to me.
No, I'm talking across the line, but this is your motion, sir. So if you don't mind, let me finish this one here. This is the reason why I will speak against and vote against this motion in relation to where it's at this point in time. I just do not believe, as what your motion said, to bring the minister in. I was a senior public servant, so ministers don't do anything. They will come in, showcase, but at the end of the day, through the chair, all it does is create anxiety around Orange, and it doesn't deal with the core issue, and that's those children. And I'm aware that there are Indigenous children in there, and I've already spoken to parents as a community person, not in anything else, but just as a community person, speaking to those children because I saw them in the centre, and I immediately said, I'm going to talk to your parents. So this is why I will will not vote for this motion. Thank you.
Resolution read out, Mr. Chairman.
Can I speak first?
Can I just let speakers first, and then at the end we'll hear the resolution. Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, at the end of the day, we're the civic leaders, and we have people in this community who will bring issues to us. That's what we're here for. That's what we're elected for. We're certainly not here to tell New South Wales Police how to do their job. This is not new. In the years that I've been a councillor, this often comes up. And we as a council and the civic leaders have provided our way of support to the New South Wales Police in many numerous ways, by helping them lobby for more constables, by helping them lobby for a new police station, and to certainly raise issues with them on behalf of the community, but certainly not to tell them how to do their job. The concern I have from the inspector's brief tonight was the fact that we may lose the Parental Responsibility Act. We as a community should be very concerned about that. That is what we should be working with the police to keep for this city. Because it has worked well. It's something that we've had for almost 25 or probably almost 30 years in this city, which has given the police a unique power to protect young people on the street who are out after a certain time. And it gives them the power to take them to either to home or to some other location that provides safe care for them. It doesn't hurt. I think raising this awareness about on behalf of community members is certainly giving the New South Wales Police the opportunity to present to the community what is in front of them and how they're dealing with it. So I'm fully supportive of the New South Wales Police, or the local police here, conducting a community meeting. To allow them to give feedback to the community about what their strategy is about protecting us in Orange. Mr. Mayor.
I might just, I totally agree with that comment. I think the police know they've got total support of the council. Whenever they need anything, I think they come to us, and we're always first to say, yep, we will help you in any way, shape or form. I agree with us promoting the meeting that's coming up, even though it's not our meeting, but I think promoting it as much as we can. I'd like to add a third point, is that we make representation to the Attorney General about the Parental Responsibility Act and how we feel deeply concerned that they might be going to take that office. Either a letter or a representation. Councillor.
We do accept that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, and I totally support that. This was an issue which councillors, I know Greenhouse was there, with regards to the Crime Prevention Safety Committee meeting. And this issue was raised, and a number of people who have raised their concerns that there is a serious risk that we're going to lose that. We're the only LGA in New South Wales which currently have that. And as Councillor Whitten said, the Act is there to protect those young people, those young kids, who for whatever reason are roaming the street or in imminent danger of offending or what other means, or harmed or whatever. So I think you are right. We need to voice our concerns to whoever it is, whether it's the Attorney General or the Police Minister, and let them know what our concerns are, because my understanding is that there isn't an appetite to retain it, and it plays a vital part in our community in protecting those young people from harm or the other criminal element which frequents.
Thanks, Councillor. And being a former chair of that crime committee, I know it's been hard work for the staff and the paperwork that they have to do every year to try and keep that in for another tool for the police to use in their armour.
I know Councillor Greenhouse is going to speak, Mr. Mayor, but I think for the public record, in the past, whenever we've looked like losing this, no matter which government was in power, we've sent a delegation of councillors and the CEO to the Premier and the Police Minister, and they've overridden decisions of the bureaucrats.
That's part 3 of the motion. That we have representation down to...
The bureaucrats just want to get rid of anything that means work for them.
We'll send a delegation down to speak to whoever we need to speak to. Councillor Greenhouse.
Yeah, I 100% echo what Councillor Miletto said, and the evidence is there. We engaged that Act 38 times, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Miletto, since the last time we had a meeting. And, you know, we did show our support and ask, was there anything further we could do to help maintain that? And, you know, ask the question what the time frame was when we would get an answer. So I'm happy, more than happy to support anything we can do to try and make sure we have that remained to keep our children in our community safe.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we just clarify exactly what the first point is? Are we still talking
We're going to
about?
read the motion out at the end. So have you finished?
Well, I was actually, if we're still talking about bringing the minister and the shadow minister, I understand what Councillor Power's point is, that we need to not treat this.
Okay, before we go on, I'll just read the motion.
Okay.
Then, yeah, can you read the motion, please?
Two-part motion. First bit is that that Council promote the Central West Police District Crime Meeting to be held 13th of September 22 at Orange Regional Gallery Theatre at 10 a.m. using various means. Pretty wide open, yeah. Second part will be something like that Council make representation to the Attorney General and New South Wales government to maintain the integrity of the parental.
Correct. Is everyone clear on what we're voting on?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go down there.
Are there any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. I'll move on to item 4.2, which is notice of motion.
I'll move the motion, Mr. Mayor.
I'm happy to second it for discussion.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is something that has sort of started as a bit of a seed that was planted while I was at the NGA in Canberra back in June, and hearing the Ukrainian ambassador speak, and basically all happened in the war since then. Council's done a few actions to show support for the people of Ukraine, including Ukrainian refugees, which is absolutely fantastic. I think this is just another step to sort of further that support. And given that they're in a war zone, being a sister city is not an option. So my suggestion would be to investigate the option of choosing a appropriate city for to engage with as a friendship city. So it's next level down from sister city, but we're still sort of making those ties.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I agree with the sentiments of what Councillor McDonald's trying to do here. I think part of it should go to actually these to that, but in what you're talking about with helping out the Ukrainian people, there's I was contacted on Friday night about a number of families that are coming to Orange, need assistance, and I said, well, I'll talk to the staff tonight, which I was going to talk to the CEO after this is over, because they need some assistance. Got homes to put them in. They've got no play equipment or something like that in the backyard and those type of things there. And I was going to get to chat to the thing there. That I think is probably the way that we can help them. But as to going to and from the thing, I think we probably should deal with that with the.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way in the world I want to go over there at the moment.
I'm not suggesting travelling over there.
I think it's just a friendship.
Yeah,
it's a friendship city,
sign
not a,
of
not a
solidarity
city,
and all
it's
that.
a friendship city.
But we had that solidarity with the flying the flag.
Yeah, but
I'm not complaining about it. Don't get me wrong.
Councillor,
I'm saying we're going to get the opportunity to put some money towards a couple of events which are going to assist the families that have been relocated here in the Central West.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. I'm just wondering whether the mover of the motion would entertain an amendment that this be referred back to the Sister Cities Committee with a view of providing council with a number of options on how to address this issue. I agree with your sentiment. My concern is around the timing, but if we refer it to the Sisters Committee and let them and shed some light on their expertise and how this may be achievable, rather than us trying to make a decision here tonight.
Yep, I'm happy with that. Doesn't need a seconder, actually, if the mover is okay with it. Legislation's changed.
We need a seconder initially.
No, I seconded.
So you're happy with that?
He was the second.
Thank you.
For discussion and with an amendment.
I suppose, Mr Mayor, process has normally always been, the courtesy is to always send something back to a committee, even though we have the jurisdiction to deal with it. I personally think I haven't got a problem with it. Like, I don't having some city in the Ukraine as a sister city now, as a sign of solidarity and support. It's not about we're not going to send troops over there or anything. We're going to be supporting them from the fact that they're under siege at the moment, and hopefully we all pray that ends soon, and we will have a sister city relationship with them, the city which is so. For me, it's an easy decision. I would have supported it, but I'll allow the committee to bring back a recommendation of support for it.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I was happy to speak in support of the original motion, happy to support the amendment as well. I did want to comment on, I noted in the staff comment that it talked about one option that, you need to build on the community connections for this to work. One option could be to draw on people who've relocated to this region. As it notes, timing would need to be managed carefully. Obviously, with all of this at the moment, I don't think we're going to have a sister city relationship set up in the next month or two. I did want to note, though, that, and Councillor Duffy's mentioned there's a bit of work going on already, just to note for councillors, there is an inaugural meeting of the newly founded Orange chapter of Rural Australians for Refugees, meeting this Thursday at 4 p.m. over at Geelanganya, the Community Services Centre, and that the agenda for that meeting actually includes an update on Ukrainian refugees who are relocating to Orange. That chapter comes out of the Afghan asylum seekers working group that was established under the previous council. So they've continued doing work with the Afghan refugee situation, but also when the Ukrainian humanitarian crisis happened, they've started doing work on that. I attended the July meeting of that working party, and we were told already several Ukrainian individuals and families had either relocated or were due to arrive last month in August. So that's happening. I know they're needing to sort things out, like getting them linked up for English lessons is a key thing, transport, and nobody will be surprised to know that accommodation is one of the key things. I know some community members have been generous, but I know the excellent staff in Council's migrant and refugee support group, support unit are working on attempting to secure arrangements where they can have work and accommodation tied to each other, basically. So they're getting a job and they're getting things here. The final thing I wanted to mention was I think this is good. Apart from the obvious humanitarian crisis at the moment, there is a strong historical connection with Ukraine in Orange. So I think looking to establish this sort of relationship would be good. I don't know if everyone's aware that the hall up on the corner of Dalton and Clinton Streets, which has become or has been the Orange Local Aboriginal Land Council building in more recent times, that was actually built in the 1950s by Ukrainian arrivals who had come here post-World War II, was a site that they used for dances and gatherings. There's actually a sign outside it on Dalton Street. You can go and have a read of it. But there was quite a strong Ukrainian community here at that time. And in fact, at the Refugee Week event that the Asylum Seeker Working Group was involved in, and the Orange Social Justice Group with support from Council, one of the descendants of those Ukrainian arrivals actually spoke and welcomed the few dozen Ukrainian refugees. The Deputy Mayor and I were both there at that event, and he welcomed them and encouraged them to consider settling here. So I hope we will see some more Ukrainian arrivals here, and potentially when we start getting to know some of those people and find out where they're from in Ukraine, that might give rise to an arrangement with the city that we could express our solidarity for. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Does everyone right with the
I just want to make back up what Councillor Mallard's saying there as regards to the where the people are coming. I think you made mention of the previous council. The previous council had a big debate in this chamber about just Afghanistan. the previous council said, hey, no, all refugees.
All refugees, yeah.
That's where they come from, we should be supporting.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. I'll move on to item 5, which is general reports. 5.1, which is project activities, September 2022, on page 20. I have a mover.
Move the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Whitmer. Seconded by Councillor Power. Any comments?
Sorry, Steve Peterson.
Councillor Peterson.
So yeah, just a comment to ask. I could see some great footpath construction on Byng Street. That's great. There is a footpath already on Byng Street. Just wanted to know how it's decided what order these projects get done in, as opposed to, say, a road that didn't have a footpath.
Mr. Greenham.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I think you'd be referring to item 2, or the second one down on the Byng Street Park to Spring Street North. It's located close to the Lexington Public School, one of the public schools down there, and gets quite a bit of use. So that was the reason why we've chosen to have one on both sides of the road.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Peterson?
Yes, thanks.
Councillor Floyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one you might be able to help me with here as well, Mr. Greenham. Page 23, major projects. The Forest Road upgrade from the hospital to the Cadia Road says it's completed, but there are still some defects to be rectified. Do you know what the defects are and what sort of impacts they may have on the area out there?
Yeah, just that the final seal that went down, the prep before it wasn't completed to our satisfaction. The contractor took it on their own risk to proceed with the final seal, and while the final seal's held up very well, it doesn't meet our standards for changing grades. So there's some patches to be done out there where they have to mill and fill to provide a smooth running surface.
And that, of course, is all at their expense, not at council's?
That's correct.
Councillor Duffy.
A bit of an update on Clergate Road. What day work's supposed to begin?
Hasn't changed since last time, but anyway, we'll have an hold.
Well, it has changed a little bit, so thank you very much for your question. In that council have completed the earthworks in preparation for the council's team to come in and do the water main relocation. That crew will get in and do that. And as we've reported previously, towards the end of September, beginning of October, we'll go out to tender with the new scope.
Any other questions? Councillor Mallard.
Mine's probably not for you, Mr. Greenham. Down on the bottom of page 23, we've got summits and forums, and I was just wondering if we have any progress update on planning for the housing summit in terms of the timing and arranging to invite the relevant stakeholders, because I think it'll be important. Hopefully we're able to hold that summit so that they can bring the ideas that will then feed into the policy work that I know we're talking through the mini budget process of getting on with for all of the different housing policies we resolve to work on. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks for the question. We're looking into an expert who we can call as the consultants for that. So until I do that, I was talking to the Department of Planning last week about trying to follow who would be the best one to show us about the interpretation of the affordable housing policy that the state brought out there a few years ago. So getting closer. Once I've nailed that down, I'll know a date then, but at the moment I don't have a date.
There's no one else. We've lost Zoom. But
I think we lost 2 off Zoom, 2 councillors. They're still there. Okay.
Oh, there they
there
are.
they are. Thank you.
Being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. Favour? Against? Carried. Move on to late item 5.2, which is Lord's Place South Draft Design Concept, which you have that report in front of you.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Happy to second it, Mr. Mayor.
We have a mover and a seconder. Any speakers?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
What's the difference between being on exhibition for 14 days versus 28?
Through Mr. Chair, 14 days.
Okay, sorry, I walked into that one.
Actually got the arithmetic right on that one.
Did you?
What are the implications thereof?
Well, why is it 14 rather than 28? Sorry, I should have asked that.
Through Mr. Chair, I think you'll find we were in somewhat of a hurry given the grant situation to try to get stuck into it.
Right.
Mr. Greenham might be able to tell us whether that urgency is still present in the project team.
The urgency still is. We'll do our best to meet the requirements of the grant, whatever council comes up with. But it is probably worth noting that this has been out in the community now for a period of 21 days in any case. We just haven't been formally taking notes, comments on it. So it's been a while since it's been reported in the CWD and from the previous council meeting. And it's certainly the design is out there. There's a little bit of chat about it, but it's important that we do get to hear the community's feedback. And given that it's been out there for a while now, we think 14 days is appropriate.
I was going to move an amendment actually on that point. I wanted to move it that we put it out for 21 days because I think it's very important, and I think 14 days isn't long. And I was thinking we might just give it an extra week so it gives people time to comment and have a look at the design. If I can have a seconder.
I'm happy to accept that amendment.
You accept that amendment?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think given there's extra documentation now as well. Yep.
Does that have any implications on anything? No, beauty.
I'd like to ask.
Well, instead of an amendment, the original motion, can I add that? Yep, happy?
Yeah, we're happy as
Thank
mover and seconder. Yep.
The motion is 21 days.
Yep. Councillor Whitten.
McDonald.
Mayor, look, I've got a few problems with this particular motion or this item, but I'm happy as always to let this go out on to be viewed by the community and allow them to have comment, and then we'll talk about it once it comes back to council.
Yep. Councillor Whitten. Any other?
I suppose a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director, and it may be the wrong director, but Mr. Greenham knows everything, so we'll ask him. The covered eatery areas that are proposed for Lord's Place, would it be more sensible to have enclosed areas given the climate in this city? Very similar to Canberra. Canberra has a similar type, I suppose, eatery areas on footpaths, but they have the ability to put to close them in so they can be used all year round and of an evening.
Great suggestion. Looking forward to those sort of comments coming back through from the public exhibition.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Very well answered.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank everybody for organising this car parking report because that was important to me, and I'm glad that it's done, and I think it's good to have that out for the public to comment on as well because it does matter. So while I think the whole concept is quite a good aspiration, we do have to find the right balance between what's beautiful and what's practical.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, I'm like Councillor Whitten. I'm happy for it to go on, I think, people. But I do have still concerns about the parking arrangement. I wasn't privy to be here this afternoon. But I do have concerns about just making the dining decks just for that section of town. I do have a problem with that because, I mean, if you look at the dining deck down there at in Lord's Place at the moment, the person who runs that business there, if you go and speak to reputable real estate agents, that's worth about $50,000 a year, and it takes away parking. Now, that's what you're doing for that part of town. But what are you doing for anywhere else in town? That is concern with me about the dining decks. I know the dining deck, and as Councillor Whitten has mentioned to me on a number of occasions, is a hive for the young restless in the town as well in the afternoon. I do have concerns about it. Big concerns.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like Councillor Kingle, I just want to thank the Director and his team for bringing back that report on parking and traffic flow. I think it was really important. And the reason I moved the amendment last meeting was to make sure that we had all the information in front of us. And now I'm confident going into this exhibition period that we're going to talk to the community and the businesses and the residents from a much more informed position with all the information in front of us. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Evans.
I'll close
the debate.
In closing, thanks. Yeah, and I also just wanted to thank the staff for getting on with this so quickly and turning it around so that we are able to keep this rolling. I think the information was great, the documentation, and appreciate the briefing we've been given as well. Thanks.
No, I just wanted to thank Councillor Muller, thank Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Evans for thanking the Director. That was all.
Well, thank you, Councillor Muller.
Thank you all.
All in favour? Against? Unanimous. Closed meeting. The Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
Mr. Mayor, no such submissions have been received in writing.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A 2 bracketed of the Act and should be dealt with a confidential session of the council meeting closed to the press and public. Following items are classified confidential under the provision of Section 10A 2 bracketed of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to the following sections. 6.1 Contract Orange Sewage Treatment Plant Inlet Works Upgrade Construct and Install. 6.3 Late Item Health Administration Corporation Agreement. 6.4 is Land Acquisition. Section C, information that would confer a commercial advantage on a person of whom the council is conducting or proposing to conduct business. And 6.2 is Submissions Reductions. 6th of September 2022. Section E, information that would be, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law.